Okay. One more clap.
Does it work if our clap is a high five? Just because remember last time
I mean,
we had
it's so short. If it doesn't, it'll be fine.
We had like a really good high five
We
after
did.
Chili's.
Oh,
and so it just
shoot.
kind of feels like...
Yeah. But I'm nervous because, like, I don't think I've ever high-fived with my left hand. So, like, I could cross over and, like, that's fine.
Yeah.
We could do that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Should I count it down or should we just do it?
I don't know. Sure.
Okay.
Ready?
3. Well, it kind of feels like cheating if we're counting down the high five because, like, it's got to be, like, kind of spontaneous. It's got to be kind of random. So we'll just know.
I think that was pretty good.
That was amazing.
That was pretty good.
It was great.
Okay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Moment of Friendly Introspection, the creative podcast with creative guests and thoughtful questions. I'm your host, Stephen Floyd. Today, my guest is Maggie Youngs. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, I think.
Sure.
It's been a long week.
Yeah, that's fair. I hear that.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm fine, I think. I'm good.
Okay, what do you think?
I hear that. Why I think? I feel like, okay, so I struggle sometimes with those questions because I'm somebody who's like, I don't have it in me to give the like, I'm good, move on if I'm like not 100% great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, but then also sometimes I'm like, but no, like I am good in spite of the other things. And so I just get in my head, you know what I mean? Back and forth about it. So right now I'm genuinely, I am genuinely good, I think. I have a lot to be grateful for, but I'm also in a season of transition.
Yes.
And so that just comes with all sorts of feelings. You know what I mean? So it's for sure both and, you know?
I would love to talk more about the transitional period.
Sure.
But before that,
yeah.
What does good mean to you?
Oh.
Like, I'm good. Oh. Like, that's the baseline that everyone expects an answer to.
Yeah.
What is good?
Sheesh. Let's just great starting question, Steven. What is good?
Jesus, stumped you already. It's been 2 minutes.
Right, Jesus is good.
Oh, gee. All right. I set you up for that.
Yeah, you did set me up for that. What is good? I don't know, maybe being like at peace, like content, I feel like is maybe what I'm typically associating, like saying I'm good with is, or maybe like the lack of, okay, it's actually interesting because I was thinking about this probably a couple months ago. This is going to sound really depressing, but I think sometimes when I give the answer, I'm good, it's like, oh, I am genuinely good for what good's sake is. And sometimes when giving the answer, like, I'm good, it's simply like the lack of something bad. But the lack of feeling negative emotions, I feel like doesn't necessarily always mean like actually feeling positive ones in their place. You know what I mean?
I do.
But then it's like that, even me just saying that is implying that being good is all about the feeling, not necessarily like something else, like a different reality,
Oh my. Well, is it okay?
You asked the question.
I did. I mean, is it okay if being good is about the feeling, at least for a season?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think at least, particularly if you're saying like, I'm feeling good, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
I think, I totally think that's totally fine, I think that's probably one of the other reasons I overthink it is because it's like, if I say I'm not good, but like actually things are good, but I just don't feel good in the midst of things being good.
I'm trying.
I
Okay,
spiral.
I got you.
It's
No,
just
no,
gonna be tough.
you didn't lose me. You're good.
What about you? How would you define good?
Why would you ask me that?
That's a great question. I'm so sorry. Never mind.
I think the peace aspect is something I for sure identify with. Like, do I feel equilibrium around me in work, in relationships, and just in my brain? Like, do I feel like measured and calm? That's good for me.
Measured is an interesting word. What do you mean by measured?
Like, things are happening around me, but nothing is like rising too high. There's no tide. It's like, oh no, water's coming over the ship. It's just like, okay, yeah, there's water around me. I see that. But
the waves are even. Like there's not one that's gonna like
capsize.
Yeah.
My brain, I guess.
Yeah. No, I hear that. Do you have any people in your life that you feel like, just because this is something I've thought about recently, like people who embody peace for you?
This is a great question. For sure, Jonathan Cyphers. I think we are very similar because I bring the peace to a lot of relationships. It's not a brag. I think I just do.
Sure. No, I feel that. That's real.
Other than him, I don't know, bro. Maybe John Mays. He's pretty even keel. Never worried about anything. That's great. That might be it.
What does it mean that like those relationships bring peace to you? Sorry, I don't know if I'm like flipping the script.
No, this is amazing. This is what I want. This is what I need. No. I love this.
Okay.
What does it mean for them to bring peace? I think in the rare moments when I am like, what am I doing? What's going on in my life? I can go to them and be like, this is how I'm feeling. They're like, all right, yeah, cool. Let's talk about it. Or I hear that, or here's some advice, whatever. I know that they can be a sounding board that won't be like an alarm.
Yeah.
What about you?
That's good. That's good. Yeah, for me, the reason I kind of have thought about it is for sure my dad is probably like the main person who I've always felt like is like really embodies peace. And I think a part of that is like not to just like dive into my life story, but like with me being diagnosed with anxiety disorder in middle school, like he's just a very peaceful person. And so when I was really little, even he was like, if I didn't fall asleep at night, he'd sit on my bed. Like he'd pray with me. He'd tell me to sing Jesus Loves Me till I fell asleep, like things like that. And so even now it's funny because I'm very much so someone who, particularly with like my family, if I am like particularly anxious even now, I will be like, hey, just even if there's not a distinct reason, just be like, hey, feeling really anxious today, whatever. But it's like funny because I was thinking about this even like last week. I sent this text and I was like, whenever my dad in particular responds like praying, I'm like, I know I'm gonna be at peace. Like I don't know why. Like he's just a person of peace and he's always been a very safe person in that. And so I'm really grateful for that. I think my boyfriend Zach is very similar, where he's just very like even keeled, kind of as you said, and like steady in that regard. It reminds me a little bit of my dad. But my dad has for sure always been the like person who like when I try to picture a person who is like embodies peace, it's my dad. So
do you think you were that peaceful person to other people or no?
I don't know. That's a great question. I hope so. I mean, I feel like it would be weird not to hope that you can be that for people, you know? I think I'm for sure a safe space for at least some people in my life, but I guess that brings up a distinction between like, is there a difference between being simply a safe space versus like truly a person of peace, if that makes sense? I don't know. Sure. Do you have thoughts on that?
Oh my. I think there is a distinction. Because like you can go to someone who's a safe space, but like you need them to be their traditional wild self.
Sure.
Because you need something wild to bring to them. So yeah, I think there's a slight distinction, but both are still very important.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. I don't know. Do you feel like, I mean, you kind of already acknowledged that you feel like you tend to be like kind of a person of peace for other people.
Yeah. I'm not an Enneagram person, but I am a 9 on that scale, which is the peacekeeper. So I totally vibe with that. Like, not a person of confrontation, I like to listen to people. People seem to like that.
Yes.
Yeah,
I've
I'm
noticed
proud to be
that.
a peaceful person in most people's lives.
Mm.
And I think just growing up, like, not that I grew up in a weird and like rowdy household, but
Mm.
it was pretty quiet. Like my mom was the one who did all the talking pretty much all
Mm.
the time. My brother and my dad are both very quiet. Um, and I think I've gotten more out of my shell as I've become an adult, but I've still kept like the reserved, peaceful, quiet nature that I grew up with.
Heard. Yeah. Do you ever wish that you weren't such a peaceful person, or are you like 100% like, yes, I'm glad that?
I'm happy with who I am.
Yeah.
I'll never say that again. Thank God we're recording.
Thank God. Yes, this is what I've been wanting you to say all along.
Oh,
So many other people are happy with you are, Steven. We love you.
Oh, jeez.
Fun fact
Oh
is
my
I like
God.
feel like I yell at
Jesus.
Steven sometimes just to remind him that he's like awesome. So everybody message Steven.
No, stop.
After this episode.
I hate compliments. Don't do that. But no, I like being a peaceful person in people's lives. Peaceful person, people's, whatever.
Wait, what'd you say?
Peaceful person in people's lives. I was trying to think of another P, but I just couldn't get
people's
perspective. Yeah.
Perfect.
No.
There you go. Oh, I didn't even mean the.
Oh, okay. Well, you didn't have to say that.
I meant that. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Transition. Let's go. Let's transition back to transition.
Let's transition. Sure.
What's going on in your life? That's big transitional stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. Some of the big transitions for me right now are one in my job. It feels weird to like say this on camera. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it feels one of those weird things, but by the time people see this, the transition will have happened, at least how I think it's going to happen. So there's that. But for the last few years, I have worked at a company called Full Circle Music, which is where we are filming right now, which is super fun. And it's been a huge, huge gift. But Full Circle as a company is currently in a time of transition. And so this year, our team has looked a little smaller. And my time here, quite literally starting next week, I'm going to be moving down hours and working here part-time, while also working part-time in artist management, which I'm super excited about for a few months. And then come basically September, I will basically fully transition to working in management. There may be some miscellaneous things here at Full Circle I do, but I will mostly be transitioning to that. And so that'll be my first like real like post-college job transition.
Yeah.
Because I've been really blessed to be here since even before I finished college. So that's really one of the biggest transitions. And then also kind of the other biggest one is I've been doing long distance with Zach. As you know, Zach's my boyfriend. I hope we're still together.
Whoa. Jeez.
You know
I'm
what I
leaving
mean?
that in.
How sad will it be if we're not?
It would be
That'd
sad.
Be really sad. Anyways.
It won't happen. Don't worry.
It's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Anyways, and so he's looking to move here because we've been doing long distance from here to Michigan for like 15 months now, which is crazy.
Whoa.
So
15 months.
The update there, I can't remember what I last told you, but is that it's currently looking like August is when he's going to be moving here.
Okay. That's quite soon.
So that's a really exciting one, but also it's just kind of like, we'll be different, you know?
Yeah.
So those are kind of the bigger ones, at least, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. I would love to talk about the job and the relationship aspect of all that. Having been here from even before you graduated at Full Circle, I mean, how's it feel to be adding something in and moving on in the near future?
Oh, Stephen, I'm going to cry. This is great. Yeah, no, for sure. It feels.
Sure.
It feels.
Yeah.
There's for sure lots of just like gratitude and excitement. The journey of getting to this place this year, like I said, kind of starting this year, really knowing that I had a job through the end of 2024 is kind of what happened, and then didn't know post that. And so I've been just so wildly grateful for how the Lord has led the last few months. The fact that it's like quite literally June 1st, and I already kind of know like what post 2024 is going to look like is beyond me, because that's just crazy. You know, that's just crazy. That's not what I expected.
Yeah.
So I'm super grateful for that. And then specifically how the opportunity to work in artist management has come up has been such a gift and so undeserved.
Well, hold on.
No, just let me go.
What does that mean? Okay, yes. Okay,
just let me
keep
go.
going.
But like it's just been so kind. So I'm for sure super grateful, and even more specifically grateful for I feel like a lot of kind of the little things that I feel like the Lord has reminded me of underneath the surface, which is kind of another side note in that process. So there's for sure lots of feelings of just gratitude. And then even larger, like even with the bigger picture gratitude of just, I never expected to end up in the music industry to begin with.
Yeah.
And so there's just even a bigger picture of gratitude there because for me and kind of my own personal story, try not to hit the mic, just in growing up with anxiety, never thought I would leave Michigan. So whenever I backtrack to just even on a larger scale and think through like, I never should have moved to Tennessee. I never should have gone to Belmont where I went to school. I never should have like ever showed anybody a song ever. I never should. And because I didn't study music business though, or anything like that, I never should have somehow ended up at Full Circle in the first place. And so like, then the next step, like every time I kind of backtrack, it's just like, just there's so much gratitude there. Simultaneously, there's for sure a lot of just sadness and overwhelm.
Take your time.
That's fine. But Full Circle's meant a lot to me. It truly, like, you kind of know part of this, but some context as to why Full Circle has meant so much is when I was in college, like I said, didn't study music or anything like that, but always knew, like, that's a huge piece of my testimony, a huge piece of my heart. And so throughout college kind of was studying ministry and nonprofit business, but always asking the Lord, like, hey, if there's something for me to learn about kind of this music space here, would you show me that? Or like, would you show me that or would you slam every door because Nashville's weird and I'm insecure and all the things. So would you just slam all the doors? Yes, of course I'm insecure.
No, whatever.
And so so at the beginning of college, I really felt like the Lord said, like, don't study it. Actually, explicitly, I kind of felt like he said, like, what if you don't and trust that I can do it outside of school? And so Full Circle, come my junior year, was just an abundant answer to that prayer where I kind of finally came to a place where I was honest with myself and was like, because as much as I kind of had been praying these prayers periodically of like, God, if there's something for music, would you show me? By the time my junior year rolled around is when I really was like, okay, God, I'm finally like actually saying it, you know what I mean? Like actually saying it. And so Lord, like songwriting, music, all of that, I actually really do care about it. If there's anything that you have for me here, would you show me? Because I didn't know a thing about the music industry, like quite literally nothing. And so, but approximately everybody in this town is studying it to some capacity or like has some connection or whatever. I had nothing, really. And so, just kind of had prayed like, Lord, if there's something for me to know, or like, if there's a way for me to grow in this, would you show me? And Full Circle had a blog writing internship at the time. And so I applied for that, somehow got it. I had some writing experience. And so it felt like this very unique, like way, like who's a blog writing internship, like for a music company, you know what I mean? Like it's super random. And the moral of the story is just being at Full Circle as an intern and then very quickly being hired on part-time through my senior year of college, just was like the domino that knocked over so many others of not only learning about the music industry, but learning about the ministry of the music industry and learning from just not only people who are incredibly talented and great at what they do, but people who just truly like care for other people. You know what I mean? And like see this industry as a ministry. And so like all of it has just been such a gift and such a gift I couldn't have pictured like freshman year Maggie, if you backtrack even further, like for sure, high school, middle school Maggie, absolutely never would have pictured. And so that has been such a gift. But then also, I think the other thing that has for sure been just kind of a sad transition has been just the team aspect, because we're a super small team. We've always been a super small team. And so stepping into this year, even kind of with a smaller team, of course, came with a lot of grief. But then also just looking even beyond that, I'm for sure excited for kind of the new team I'm going to be a part of and the relationships there. But I've been really blessed where, as long as I've been a full circle, I've truly worked with some of my best friends. Like the people I've worked with have become my best friends. And so starting over, and that is also just sad, you know? So there's a variety of those emotions. It feels like at least now, like I'm mostly excited for what's next, but it's the pairing of the grateful, excited for what's next with just more so than anything, I feel like kind of the sadness of what I'm leaving and being grateful for what I'm leaving. But it's almost like when you're more grateful for something, leaving it is just harder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, if that answered your question, that was a lot.
No,
but
I think it did for sure. One thing that I think Full Circle was very good at, and this was my experience not being a part of it, was like they do well in development with people and with people outside of who work directly with them. Like they're interested in like teaching and seeing people grow.
Yeah.
Something that I think Centricity, the company I work at, is also very good at. Like they care about people whether you're like giving them money or not, or whether they're directly affiliated with you or not.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that. Like I listened to the Made It in Music podcast before I started at Centricity, and they had a lot of interviews with people I ended up working with and being friends with. So I was like, oh yeah, it's cool to hear their thoughts on the music industry. And Seth being so connected and giving has been a blessing to so many people. Yeah. And you've been a blessing to so many people being here.
That's kind. I don't know. So many people, I feel like I've been so incredibly blessed. And yeah, I love that. I think it's so fun that you came across the Made It in Music podcast beforehand. Like, I don't know. That's just so fun. Like, it's so full circle, if you will.
Oh, gross.
Gross. But whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do you feel like there are any transitions in your life right now? Or in general, how do you tend to feel about transition?
I am not great at it. Especially, I'd say the biggest transition of my life recently was my divorce, which was finalized last summer. I don't do things well by myself. I'd love to have other people to do things with, whether they're experiences or just life in general. So doing all of that by myself was just so terrifying. And like, I couldn't see any good at the end of the tunnel. It's just like, okay, this is all bad and this is just my life now. And I think there've been some good to come of it. Just gotten closer with some people, got to know myself better. I probably wouldn't have done this without it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not good at transition for sure. But I'm usually not one to like freak out about it either. I am kind of go with the flow, but it's still kind of difficult.
Yeah. Sometimes the flow is
down. Sometimes it's just down.
Sure.
I would love to talk about transition with your relationship.
Yeah.
Is that coming here soon-ish? What is your history with relationships? Like this seems to be a big thing.
Sure.
I'm asking it.
Yeah. So just history with relationships in general?
Yes. And like
romantic relationships specifically?
Yes. And why in this moment, is that coming here and y'all have been together a year and change?
Yeah.
This is a big step.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Sure.
Yeah.
History with relationships is really that I really haven't had, like, my relationship with Zach has easily been, like, the most, like, concrete, committed potential for, like, marriage relationship that I've had. Prior to dating Zach, I dated a couple of people for, like, a few months. Obviously, all great people, all are stories within themselves, you know? And so that's kind of the gist there. None of that really started until I was in college. But But honestly, coming out of kind of those few relationships, as like silly as it sounds, because I had those relationships to begin with, I kind of was in a place where I really wasn't sure if I wanted to date in my 20s
Sure.
anymore. I don't know. I've also often been someone, particularly prior to dating Zach, where I was in a place of like, well, I think I want to get married, but also like I could see myself single for the rest of my life, which is just like a really weird place to sit, and I feel like isn't often the most common place, particularly for like women in the church or whatever, to sit. But it's just very true to who I am, and backstory there too, whatever. But and so as you know, me and Zach's relationship kind of came out of nowhere. I knew Zach from back in Michigan, but we hadn't really talked in a whole long time. But when he did kind of ask me out, and we had a date back in Michigan and stuff like that, because he was a little bit older, because it was long distance, I kind of knew there'd be an inherent, like, there had always been intentionality, you know what I mean? But knew there would be kind of like a little bit of an extra intentionality, because you can't really just casually date someone like 9 hours away. So I think from the get, it's been more intentional, and it's by the nature of it had to be, but also wanting it to be, and so I can't remember exactly the question you were asking about how that leads us to now, but
yeah, it's a big step with him coming. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I'm excited overall. I think that it's one of those things where, just like I said, even the best transitions are transitions, and so I think we both have a pretty like healthy awareness that there's going to be a learning curve, just because it's so different to date in person than like online. And obviously, like, there has for sure been some like hard parts of dating, like long distance. We've been really blessed to be able to see each other about once a month. We always have like an actual like virtual date night. We talk like every day. So like we for sure have had some established rhythms, which I think has been super helpful and really great. But even that is super different than like being able to casually be like, oh, do you want to watch a TV show tonight? Or like, oh, hey, I'm going to this show.
Yeah.
You want to come? Like, or, you know what I mean? Like, oh, like, you know what I mean? Being 20 minutes down the road is very different than 9 hours. Just when it comes to like a doing life together sort of thing, because that's just something that we've processed a lot in doing long distance, is just that as much as we know about each other's lives, and as much as obviously we're able to capture that in pockets when we do see each other, it helps too that our families like are in the same area of Michigan, things like that, and we grew up in the same church and stuff like that. So we do have like shared context, if that makes sense, which I think helps. But nonetheless, in kind of our current seasons, there's not a lot of doing life together, and so I think that's one of the things that we're most excited about, is to see just what that looks like. But we also know that's going to look very different. So overall, I guess I'd say I'm definitely excited to see what that looks like. And I don't know if that answers your question.
I think it did.
But
you're excited.
Yeah, I'm excited. We'll see. I'm excited. It'll be interesting to see how it all, like, another thing we've talked about is just the fact that like his transition correlates with a lot of other transitions. You know what I mean? And he'll also have his own pocket of transitions. So I think I'm curious to see how all of those things come together, of course. But yeah, I'm excited.
Okay.
So yeah, that's that.
Well, let's take a quick break. We're going to change some stuff and come back in a second.
Sounds good.
Okay, welcome back. Here we go. We're still just having a good old chat about whatever. And I checked my notes because I wanted to come up with some topics to lead us other places, not just going off the dome like I have for the other records. And one of the most important notes I made was Chili's. Just the word Chili's.
Wow. Yes.
Tell me about your love for Chili's.
Oh, Steven. Well, it goes back to my childhood. It really all starts when I don't know how old I was, but I love that you asked that question. This is important. Yeah, I love Chili's. My family loves Chili's. I don't really know exactly what it is about it. Also, I feel like my eyes are like lighting up talking about Chili's, and that's really funny. I can like feel it. But yeah, my family just kind of grew up. I don't know. It was our go-to place for some reason, and there was a Chili's like just a few minutes away from church, and I grew up going to church on Saturday nights. So basically, like dinner after church was almost always Chili's or like Chinese.
Okay.
And so it just was kind of a go-to thing. And there was like a big hill outside of the Chili's. Okay. So we had all sorts of things where like we would roll down the hill as kids.
Yes.
I just love it. It's iconic. My sister, for context of like the importance of Chili's in that is my sister has Crocs with like the Chili's symbol on them.
What?
And like, I know. And she lives in New York City, and they don't have a Chili's there.
They don't have a single Chili's in New York City?
They don't have a single Chili's in New York City.
How's that possible?
Also, that sounds like a title of a silly song or something.
That might be the title of this episode.
Chili's in New York City.
They don't have a single Chili's in New York City.
They don't have a single Chili's in New York City.
Okay.
But so her and her boyfriend will like take, I can't remember if it's a bus or train or whatever, to New Jersey.
Oh my.
To like go to Chili's periodically because like it's that important.
Okay, so the love is real.
It's like real.
If you're going to New Jersey.
Yeah.
For anything. The love is real.
Sure. And I think that's really like the only thing she goes to New Jersey for.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So what's the go-to? What's the
go-to? Okay, so to be honest.
The chips and salsa, of course.
Obviously chips and salsa, but the chips and salsa with also the ranch.
That's a pro tip.
Yeah, Steven recently tried.
Yes.
We love it. I almost always get either the bacon chicken ranch quesadillas through their 3 for Me, or a soup and salad with their chicken enchilada soup, and just like a house salad. Okay. So also their chicken crispers are good. To be honest with you, I've never really branched out super far.
That's fine.
As you'd think, with as much as I've got. Like I went twice this month. Like I went again after you and I went to Chili's.
Amazing.
Yeah. Like you'd think I would have tried more things, but yeah. What was your review? I know we talked a little bit about it, but like now that you've had more time to like really process and think about it, which I'm sure you've done.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure you've spent a lot of time thinking on it.
They had like a strawberry lemonade, some sort of lemonade with a fruit.
Wasn't it like a watermelon?
Yeah, watermelon lemonade maybe.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it a lot. Like it was very sweet, which is what I need. So that was great. The burger, I would not get it again. Not because it was bad. It was just so much. It was too much.
It was a really big burger for
enormous. It was bacon and something.
Yeah.
But it was good. I'd give it a 7 out of 10 for sure. I would like to go back at some point.
It slightly pains me that it's a 7, but
sorry.
Also,
I haven't
it's
been
okay.
In 10 years.
I get it. I do. Yeah. Okay,
so enough about Chili's. How did you get from Michigan to Nashville?
Wow, that's just
yeah.
Yes, so I got from Michigan to Nashville. The short way I typically say to people is like God through school. And so basically post high school, I'd taken a gap year, was a worship intern back in my home church in Michigan. And coming out of that, I kind of knew something probably in ministry music, something like that was what I wanted to do, or where I was kind of being led. But you don't really have to go to school for those things.
You don't.
So didn't really know what that would look like. Was looking at things like YWAM or I don't know, kind of every option was on the table really. But I think my family was a little bit like, but school.
Yeah.
But I'd always like enjoyed school and been good at school, so it did make sense. But what I did not know is that I would end up at Belmont or be led there, and how that happened. It's kind of a wild story.
Okay, I'm here for it.
Have you ever never told you that story?
I've heard it, but I don't know if the people have.
Well, for the people have probably not. But yeah, so I ended up at Belmont basically. So, okay, this is a mess.
Okay.
Basically, ended my internship around, I want to say like May.
Okay.
And going into that summer, I really felt like the Lord said, like, hey, I know that you just want to like figure out the fall. And like, I tend to be a planner and kind of want to jump ahead. And so he kind of was like, I know that you just kind of want to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I actually want you to just not try to figure it out right away and just take the summer and really trust me like a week and a step at a time. And I was like, okay. And so that summer I kind of ended up, it was just kind of this little adventure where truly like a bunch of just kind of random things came up. So I ended up like being a leader on like a mission trip randomly, and then being like a camp counselor for like 1 week in Michigan, like a bunch of things though that happened like couldn't have happened if I tried to plan too far in advance. Like it came up kind of randomly, and throughout kind of some of those things that were happening that summer, Belmont kept coming up through like metaphors, through songs, through random street signs in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, like all sorts of different things. One of kind of my favorite parts of that journey was I had been like praying and writing a song, kind of wrestling with this like kind of starting to feel like I was supposed to come to Belmont, move to Nashville, but truly in my heart not wanting to. And which sounds crazy, but I can sprawl back to that. And felt like and in that the song was kind of about like this mountain metaphor thing.
Yeah.
And then later come to find out that Belmont means beautiful mountain. So that was just like one of the things. And so basically, I applied finally to Belmont, was finally like, okay, I think I'm supposed to go, I'll do it. 3 weeks before school started, was somehow accepted within 24 hours. And then somehow scholarships came through, which was like also crazy at that point. Like I remember me and my dad sitting, so then a week before school started, we visited Belmont for the first time. And so we were with all the like juniors in high school, like in the orientation thing. And they were all talking about like, deadline is May 1st, blah, 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 whatever. Man. And we were like, false. Yeah. It's actually not. So yeah, committed to Belmont a week before school started, and moved the next week, which is crazy. And really my parents are the real heroes in that story, because like who in the world lets their kid do that or like go on that faith journey? Like quite literally nobody. That's crazy. And so that's how I ended up down here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got down here.
I got down here.
What was your Belmont experience?
Loaded. What a loaded question. It was great overall. I'm super grateful for Belmont. I will say, kind of sprawling back to why I initially didn't want to go to Belmont, which sounds crazy because it's such a privilege that I was able to go to Belmont. But for me, I knew that Belmont was obviously a really big music school.
Yeah.
But for me personally, I'd already had a bunch of insecurities when it came to music. And like I said, didn't really know a ton about the industry. And Belmont is a place where like on day one, for anybody who's been there, if you're a songwriter, artist, producer, worship leader even, it's kind of like, hi, I'm so-and-so, here's my link tree, here's my Spotify, here's my whatever. And I didn't know how to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah. And
kind of knew that was probably what I would walk into. So that's what kind of like was intimidating for me about the idea even to begin with. And especially knowing that songwriting, I guess I haven't really talked about this, but songwriting in particular, had been such a sweet place in my testimony at that point, alongside worship. And so being like, well, these are really precious things to me, and I'm already insecure about them. If I move to Nashville, those insecurities are just gonna be like on blast. Anyways, getting to Belmont then, when it came to the music space, I did feel that. And so I didn't know how to touch that culture with a 10-foot pole, like I said, and so I didn't. So when it comes to that part, a lot of my Belmont experience was being in kind of my majors, a lot of ministry sort of stuff, enjoying kind of my other major, which was nonprofit business, and learning a lot in those things. Really loved the friends I made, learned a lot there. I think I came into Belmont with a little bit of a different perspective than people who just jump into school right out of high school.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I don't know how to describe it. It was like I didn't care about college, like for the college experience. I didn't really care, if that makes sense. Like I was still involved in stuff, but like, I don't know, I feel like through my gap year and just perspective, it was really about the bigger picture of like, okay, where am I going? What does ministry look like in life in general, sort of stuff like that. And so I was involved in Belmont, but also in a lot of ways, a decent amount of the time I was there felt slightly detached from it at the same time, if that makes sense. So yeah, friends were great. I really enjoyed my classes. There can be kind of mixed feelings about certain ways Belmont goes about various things, particularly in their College of Theology and stuff like that. And some of that I think there are pros and cons to all of it, you know what I mean? But I think I have a pretty good perspective on it. But I'd say overall my Belmont experience was great, and I'm really grateful for it. And I think too, I can look at it and I'm super grateful for the things I studied.
Yeah.
And also, to be honest, at least for me personally, not the case for anyone, I think the Lord protected me by not having me study music business or something like that. Didn't even consider studying music business. Considered the songwriting program, though, or like a commercial piano minor. But at least for me personally, I feel like I was protected from those things, just knowing my own disposition and knowing that I think those programs may have eaten me alive. So, just to be honest, I don't know if that at all answered where you're trying to go with that question. But,
no, you did a great job. When did songwriting become so important to you?
Oh, good question. Also, I feel like okay. So songwriting really started for me in middle school. So like when it came important to me was then. As I mentioned, I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder when I was middle school. Really crippling, paralyzing. Everything was scary. Was at a place where like I truly considered at 11, like, if I'm going to be anxious my entire life, what is the point of living at all?
Yeah.
Which is not a thought you ever want someone to have, but particularly at 11 is just kind of anyways, that's just setting the scene for kind of where I was at in general. And so I happened to learn how to play chords when I was in middle school. And I really don't remember ever sitting down and being like, I want to write a song today. But I do remember being just a wildly anxious middle schooler learning to pray. And sometimes they just happened to be underscored with those few simple chords that I had learned in piano lessons. And so that's when it really became important to me, like just for songwriting itself, even if I didn't really have a word, you know what I mean? Even if I wasn't like, yes, I'm songwriting at the time, you know, that's for sure when it became important to me, just as a way of like praying and processing so many of the things I was anxious about. So yeah.
Well, you're still songwriting today.
Yes.
How do you balance something so creative with the industry side jobs that you're working?
Sure. I think I'm going to continue to figure that out over the next year. So it's been a journey for sure. I think how do I balance it? Well, sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. Is the first answer. Sometimes it's just not balanced and I'm just exhausted but doing my best. Or sometimes I just, it just depends. But I think what's been really sweet about me being at Full Circle and being able to balance it all is because, well, first of all, I also recap what Full Circle is because some people might not know. So Full Circle, for those who don't know, was started by Seth Mosley. You brought him up earlier. He's a songwriter and producer, has had just a ton of success in the music industry, particularly in the Christian and country markets. And basically because of his success in music, he started an online academy to resource up-and-coming songwriters, artists, and producers. And working for that online academy has been my main job over the last few years. And so that said, that's kind of a unique space in the music industry. It's something that's like in the industry, but also not at the same time. And so what's been sweet about that, what's been sweet about being at Full Circle is it's allowed me to learn a lot about the music industry, a lot about just business in general because of its nature as an online academy and a small business, while also has allowed me to just like get a complete crash course in songwriting and co-writing and things like that. And so specifically Full Circle has honestly probably equipped me for songwriting and co-writing like more so than anything else in my life. Just from learning so much. The biggest thing has probably always been, of course, time. And so at least up until this point, probably time has been the biggest thing to try to balance. And I've had a couple seasons at Full Circle, some working at 40 hours, some working at 30 hours, have so far kind of been the main 2 kind of hours I've worked. And so I've kind of learned what it's looked like to try to prioritize co-writes a lot on Thursdays and Fridays.
Yeah.
But my biggest things are evenings and weekends. I think I've gone through phases where in 40-hour seasons where my schedule was less flexible, like just lots of figuring out like evenings, weekends, like how to do it. And then at 30 hours, it's been really sweet that it's been a lot easier and flexible to do it a lot more, which I've been grateful for. But yeah, I know that stepping into kind of this next season, I'm sure that this time next year, I will have a whole nother answer to that question.
Yeah.
Because I will be in something that is less adjacent to the music industry and more like right in the thick of it.
Yeah.
And so kind of TBD on that part.
Okay. Yeah. Talk to the people about the difficulty of, how do I even say this? Trying to make it as a creative, like a songwriter or an artist, producer, whatever you're trying to do, in music at least, in this town, and like having another job and feeling like, oh, I'm not doing this thing fully. I'm not blank, or I'm not doing the industry side thing fully. I'm not that either. Like, do you ever feel that?
Sure. You asked that because I do, and we've talked about it. Yeah, I think it's been an interesting process. So on one hand, for me personally, at least, like I said, I never expected to end up in the music industry. Sure. Like truly coming out of college, before kind of getting involved in Full Circle, my best guess of what I would do was truly working in vocational ministry or at a nonprofit or something like that. So there's a piece of me where like I never expected any of it to be kind of a full-time thing. You know what I'm saying? And so in that regard, it can all just be really sweet and exciting and is a gift. You know what I mean? To be a part of in general. However, you're right. There has been the piece I've wrestled with. And I think where kind of that has come into play for me has been less of maybe not feeling like, well, there's for sure pieces of not feeling like I'm chasing something, a certain amount of thing. The truth is that for me, I really enjoy all of it, which has been something we've talked about, like through my experience at Full Circle and having some internships when I was in college as well while working at Full Circle, and just through mentors and things like that. I've been super grateful to kind of get this crash course in the music industry, and I've really fallen in love with what the ministry of that looks like, whether that is in a co-write, just hearing someone out, getting to listen, getting to be a part of creating a beautiful way of processing whatever that thing might be. But also in making a graphic for a friend's show, or designing a t-shirt, or doing what we do at Full Circle, where it's like equipping people up and coming, or seeing a friend at their show, or whatever it might be. I really genuinely love both. And I feel like, the biggest thing that has been difficult for me is less about, I think, sometimes actually doing all of the things, if that makes sense. There are for sure moments where I'm like, we're trying to do a bunch of things is difficult. But I think more so something that I've wrestled with over the years is in the gift of having kind of mentors or friends who are in a variety of roles. I've realized that the context in which I've met a lot of them in sometimes means that I'm perceived completely different in different rooms. And that is the part that I've always wrestled with, where I can recognize that like this friend, mentor, or whatever like that only sees me as someone with potential in business, which is a gift in of itself. Like even the fact that people see that is like such a humbling honor. But where they don't recognize maybe necessarily the weight that songwriting has in my heart. And then it's funny because then I'll have friends who are, songwriters or artists or whatever like that, where like they forget that I'm like in a season where I'm also trying to juggle a job or whatever. And so I think it's mostly been a wrestling of trying to remember where my identity actually comes from, that it's not from those voices. But it's a difficult thing sometimes in an industry where a lot of times the narrative is you have to pick a lane and run at it, where simultaneously, at least outside of the business, well, I don't know, you tell me what you think, where simultaneously a lot of times it feels like few people, like there's almost no one who actually wears one hat. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those weird dichotomies. And so I found myself in that tension for sure. Yeah. I don't know. That answered the question.
That helps. And hopefully it helps these people who also feel that way. I know I can be guilty of only seeing people in one way, especially like in a work sense, like when I'm scouting an artist and I see that they're making this type of music in this style, or they sing this way, and then they're doing something completely different in a different song. It makes me like confused and like not quite nervous, but like I question like, oh, what are they actually doing? What are they like? I don't know. And I wouldn't know unless I like talk to them and hear their story about why they did all this stuff. But from the outside looking in, that can definitely turn me off to something. But people are more than that. So I shouldn't do that. Whatever.
Yeah. What would you say your advice is then to people? I know you over the years have been a really like, I feel like you have been someone who I've really appreciated as being a sounding board, and I mean, in part because of just how we met and stuff like that, being able to kind of pick your brain on the variety of things I've had the chance to be involved in. So I know you've specifically spoken into some of the things I've been a part of, but in general to other people kind of in, like as well, in kind of that tension, what do you feel like tends to be your advice or wisdom? Whether when it comes to genres for an artist specifically or someone quite literally wearing hats amongst the industry.
Yeah. I think do the thing you love most. Stick with that. There's a phrase when I played like basketball in middle school that our coach would always say. And there's the concept of like if you have the ball and you're dribbling down the court and two defenders come up to you and like they get around you, that's called a trap. And the way to not get trapped is to just go really hard one way. Let them like chase you. So like I'll tell people, go hard one way. Go the way that you love most. Like you won't get trapped that way. That's advice that I give. But I also give the advice of like try multiple things. Make sure you don't like something. Don't just not like it because it's unknown. Don't like it because you know it's not for you. For artists, I think that works for artists and industry people. Like if you can, as an industry person, if you can have opportunities to try out different sections of the industry, please do it. Make sure you find what you don't like so you're not stuck in a job for 10 years and you hate it and the people around you. Just go hard one way. That's my main advice.
Heard.
A bit of a shift here, but something I thought about. When did you figure out that you were good at problem solving?
Interesting question.
Because I think you're very good at it.
Thanks.
And almost every time we meet, we've met every month for lunch for the past however long.
Like
I don't know,
2 years.
It feels like there's something new at Full Circle that you're in charge of. And I'm like, I don't know if I've heard you do something like that before. But the next time we meet after that, he's like, oh yeah, I did that thing and it worked out great. And I'm like, all right.
That's so funny because I don't feel like that's been the case at all. Mostly because I don't I've often had my hand in so many things. I feel like there's often not necessarily been I haven't often felt like I have ownership over, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like things and maybe the way that you've perceived it. So that's interesting that you even say that. Maybe this year has been a little different in that sense. But when did I discover I was good at problem solving? Interesting. Very interesting question. I think that maybe, I don't know. That's a good question. The moment that comes to my mind, honestly, was probably right when I started at Full Circle. So my first job at Full Circle, when I was kind of part-time through my senior year, was really just helping with systems, like super on the back end. So like refunds, failed payments, some support stuff, like very, very system kind of basic things. But also in that role, I kind of was able to see where a lot of things needed to be like cleaned up, or just because of the nature of a small team and, prioritizing other things, maybe the way certain things were organized or whatever hadn't been looked at super carefully, which made sense. But I think it was probably in that role that I first realized like I could spot, if that makes sense, that there even was maybe a problem to be solved. And so I feel like that's when I first realized, like, oh, I actually can figure these things out, and I actually kind of enjoy figuring these things out, even though they're like super small system back-end things at the time, I guess. I don't know. That's my best answer I think I can think of right now, but
I think it's a good one. And I'm sure they've appreciated that since you've been here.
I don't know. Sure, I don't know.
I was talking with John Mays very recently because I started as an intern at Centricity. And when I started, there were a few like back-end things that were like small or like no one really needed to fix them. It was just like mildly annoying, and I'd hear one of them complain like, "Oh, I wish it was like this." So I'd be like, "Can I fix that?
Yeah.
Can I make that easier for them?"
Yeah.
Not thinking that they would hire me one day. Just being like, "Okay, for the next intern and from now on for them, how can I make it easier?"
Yeah.
That's
good.
I think that attitude helps. I guess that's a tip for anyone out there. Try and make everyone else's life around you easier.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, but try.
Yeah. Would you say that's when you realized that you were good at problem solving? Or do you feel like that was something you realized before that?
Why don't you ask me that?
Do you feel like you're good at problem solving? I feel like you're good at problem solving. But
I think I am. I have not thought about it. I think maybe it was a bit earlier than that. Maybe like when I moved to Murfreesboro and I had no idea what I was doing with my life. Me and my ex were just like, we were living in our super duper small apartment, and I got a job delivering pizza, and like I just felt like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and eventually I'm gonna make it my way into the music industry. And there was no blueprint for how to do that.
Yeah.
But the way I went about it, just like making connections and leaning on them, is how I got there. So when I got the job, it felt like, yeah, I did this well. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. We're going to take another break. We're going to come back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Nothing has changed. This is now the part where we get into the questions. And I'm very nervous about this.
Why?
I'm not nervous for you. I'm nervous for me because I know what they are, and I know I haven't thought about them, but I know it's probably better if I don't think about them. But I don't know. I'm nervous about my answers because I have no idea what's going to happen.
I think that's so interesting to me because I know you ask the same questions.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Fine.
All right. Question 1.
Okay.
We're going to do 3 questions, then we'll break, and we'll go to the next 3, and then we'll do another 4
Great.
or whatever. Question 1. Do you remember when we first met and what you thought about me?
Yes.
Okay.
I do. When we first met was right when you had just started working at Centricity.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Cool.
Well, I guess we'll see if our answers are different, but I'm pretty sure we have the same.
I'm going to give you a clue right now. I don't remember a lot.
Are you for real?
I do remember
I'm super forgettable.
I don't remember where I was in my career. That's for sure. I don't remember that.
Okay, heard. Yeah, I think what I remember is that you had been... So part of the reason we'd gotten connected was Grace Graber. We both individually knew. And I think that you had obviously been interning at Centricity, and so I think you were within the first 3 to 6 months of working at Centricity, and I had just finished interning at Full Circle and had just started working at Full Circle as well. And so I think part of the reason Grace, at least I know part of the reason she connected me with you was, I think, as Steven is kind of doing the same thing. He also just kind of transitioned from an internship to working somewhere. But also you had way more experience and knew way more than I did. So I think it was also just kind of a kind, I'll connect you and Steven sort of thing. And so I remember we met at, what is it called? Stay Golden.
Yes, of course.
And I think we actually got breakfast.
I think we did.
I think we got breakfast or a lunch instead of coffee. I know I was still in college. And yeah, I just remember it being a really sweet connect. And I remember just talking about kind of where you were at in your life and who you were, and you asking me about me and where my life was. And I remember just being it's funny, we talk about feeling the I just talked about feeling the need to like, or sometimes feeling a pressure to like, say where my experience is at in light of the conversation I'm in or whatever.
Yeah.
But because I literally, like, I remember not feeling that pressure because I just was like brand spanking new to everything, had no idea what was going on. And so I just remember it being a really sweet and encouraging conversation and just being super honest about the things that I had been learning and was excited about. And then also you just being super gracious and kind. And basically you had talked a little bit about how you had a season where someone met with you every month and kind of had been a mentor and coach and just all of that. And so I would just remember you at the end of the conversation being like, well, I've kind of had something like this before. Do you want to just keep getting together for lunch every month? And I was like, yeah.
Wow.
That's so kind. Yes, I would. So that's what I remember.
I don't remember the mentor part being that big.
I don't know if you said it as explicitly
maybe
as like
I did. I have a terrible memory.
I don't know if you were as explicit as like, let me mentor you. You know what I mean? I don't know that you like super explicitly about that, but you just more so like very softly were like, well, if you continue to have questions and just, I don't know, want to continue getting lunch. I think you made it probably a little more casual in your Steven way. That's probably more so how you put it.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, basically you're just like, if you're going to keep getting lunch, basically for whatever, starting now, every month. And I was like, sure, that sounds great.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah, and here we are.
Yeah.
I remember Stay Golden.
Mm-hmm.
It was breakfast. I remember being pretty busy, which is not abnormal. But I remember us talking and you were just sharing your Belmont experience. And it just sounded different from everyone else. And maybe that's because you didn't have the music industry track.
Sure.
Like you had something different, but you still had a passion for songwriting and people around you. Like having a passion for people felt refreshing. And I thought, like, this person's really smart. I want to be around them.
What?
No, really. Like, I want to continue to be around them. Like, I'm sure they're going to be something even better in the future. I'd love to know them. So that's really what made me want to meet every month.
That's so kind. That is so incredibly kind. Yeah, no, I very much so was like, wait, Steven seems so solid, just like as a person and a human being, and also so cool and how kind. I basically same. Basically ditto.
I do like having recurring, like monthly or periodic meetings with people like yourself, just to like catch up and see how people are and are they progressing, not just in a work sense, but just like personally, how are we doing?
Yeah.
That's probably been one of my favorite parts of the job.
Yeah.
Having the freedom to do that and then having the time, because like I don't have a lot of time anymore.
Sure.
But so many things are already baked into the recurring thing. Like us, we're like, okay, yeah, I'm not missing this. I got to see what Maggie's up to.
I'm gonna cry. It's fine. What has been your favorite part of? What has been your favorite part of those conversations? Not just ours, but just in general, the fact that you kind of get to have those recurring meetings, and also, like, I don't even know exactly how to phrase this question, but I'm sure they all look different. You know what I mean? I know, especially a lot of your meetings are with people who are more explicitly 100% kind of artists aspiring for kind of the next step.
Yeah.
But other ones aren't. Like ours has been a little more eclectic. What has been, would love to hear more of your thoughts on like what those meetings have been like in general.
I think as a baseline for whoever it is, it's just a chance to catch up personally.
Yeah.
And I value that a lot more than whatever work we end up talking about. I want them to feel like, oh, I have a friend in the industry who supports me and who will be there for me, whether I'm working at a music place or not.
Yeah.
And like I've had recurring things with people who have left their jobs and like we've still kept up doing them because like that's what I would want someone to do for me. Like don't just throw me by the wayside if I don't work at Centricity anymore. That's been the most beautiful part, just catching up and becoming closer friends with these people. Yeah, that's how it looks.
Yeah. Do you have any conversations that you've had over the years during those meetings that like stand out as like just specific things from those conversations that have really stuck with you?
Woof.
Sorry, I know that's like super loaded.
I just said I had a terrible memory.
That's a great point. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. I'd say yes, and I guess selfishly, they've been around my divorce. Just
Mhm.
like going into a meeting, especially when it was
Not, first of all, not selfishly.
no, I think selfishly.
No. Continue.
Whatever. Um, Going into the meeting with whoever this was and be like, okay, I'm gonna tell them in whatever form. I'm gonna tell them like the whole story or just an abridged story.
Yeah.
But like having the baseline of feeling like I'm comfortable enough to say something, because there were times where I had a recurring thing or just like a periodic thing, and this was happening in my life. I didn't say anything because it was just like, I don't trust you with this. I can't go there. So when things were happening last summer, I know Cyphers was one of them.
Yeah.
Just like going to him and being like, here's what's happening in my life.
Yeah.
And him being like, oh, geez, that's horrible. I'm here for you.
Mhm.
And that was pretty much the refrain of everyone I told. Like, that's terrible. I'm here for you. How can I be here for you better?
Mhm.
Which is so sweet. It's great to have a community that cares in an industry that's so weird because, like, you meet with all these people, especially like me and artists. Like, you meet with them, and there's always this thing in the back of their mind, like, okay, are we going to work together?
Right.
Like, we can be cool, but like, are you going to sign me or whatever? Or like, meeting with another A&R person or maybe a publisher, like, are you going to have our writers with your artists? Like, what are we doing here? But to break all that down and be like, hey, this real personal thing is happening in my life. I'm going to open up to you about it. And them being there for me and feeling like they were genuine was amazing.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Good Lord. Question 2.
Question 2.
Let's see it. How do you feel about our relationship now?
Aw, that's kind of a wholesome question. Great.
What do you mean? Question mark at the end.
Well, I'm not questioning that it's great. I'm more so like, that feels too simple. Like, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, great. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm super grateful for our relationship now. I think, kind of as you said, like, I mean, you just kind of feel like a friend, honestly.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I think we're friends.
I would hope so.
Okay. I was like,
I definitely think so.
I only go to Chili's with my friends, so I'm actually not kidding. I don't think. Anyways, but yeah, I'm just super grateful for our relationship. I feel like it's just really sweet and wholesome, and I don't know, it's been really fun. I don't know. I don't even like how does one describe a relationship? What would you say? What's your answer?
I think we have a great relationship. Going back to what you were saying about just like when we first met and me offering a mentor like thing, it's never felt like that for me. It's felt like we're just friends.
Yeah.
And maybe I could have been a better mentor.
No.
But
No.
but yeah, I think we're just close friends because like we haven't done a lot of work interaction together. Like you sent me some songs to consider for Bay and his artistry. But other than that, I don't know if we've done a lot of work stuff together.
Yeah.
But it's just been fun hanging out with you.
Yeah. No, I mean, I kind of feel that too. One, I don't know. It feels like one of those weird things to say, but I very much so agree where I feel like what's been really sweet is just kind of being friends and getting to check in both on like things, especially because we met both pretty at the beginning-ish of you being at Centricity and then the beginning-ish of me being at Full Circles. I feel like there's been one on, I guess, that side. It's been sweet to just see the many iterations of like different responsibilities, things like that's just been like, I feel like it's just really fun. It's been really fun to like be on the sidelines of you getting to do things that you really love, if that makes sense, and like cheer you on in those things. Like it's just super exciting. Like when Bay was signed, when Natalie was signed, when whatever, and like getting to see you like step more into those, and like there being updates again, like every month about
Yeah.
like, well, now we're looking at this person or whatever. And it's just been really fun and exciting. Like, it just makes me be like, yay, Steven! You know what I mean? For lack of better words, like on that side, that's been really exciting. And it's been, I feel like, really sweet and encouraging then too, to kind of get to process some of those checkpoints with you as well. Like I remember, I don't know, just in the beginning, like I can't even remember exactly which transition it was, but I want to say it was earlier this year, kind of as like a prelude to some of the transitions coming up. Just you, I feel like you have been so kind in just asking really insightful questions um, as I've processed various things in my job or just personally um, as well. And that's what I was going to say too, is I feel like personally too, it's been really sweet to like, I'm just really grateful for your friendship. Like, again, that being really the more so thing.
Mhm.
And just also being a like it feels like, I don't know how to say this otherwise, like being the cheerleader of Steven as a friend in all of it, like recognizing that like X amount of hours a week are your job. And so cheerleading you in that, but just really more so as a friend than anything, because we're not really like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't really work together. But then also personally, as you've had transitions yourself or like doing things like this,
Yeah.
which is so awesome. And so, yeah, I've been grateful for that. Like, I don't know, you can cut this out, but it's been funny. To be
No.
completely honest with you, like, first of all, I don't want to say you haven't been a mentor because I've learned so much for you, but it also does feel kind of awkward to say at the same time. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
it's a little bit of both ends. So I don't want to affirm you feeling like you haven't
I see.
taught me, because you absolutely have. But I also will say that like it's slightly funny because I mean, my job has not always been as flexible, especially kind of at the beginning of when we were meeting. And so to kind of like justify the fact that we're meeting, for sure, like all of my supervisors, he was like, "This is my mentor lunch with Steven."
Hey, I'll
Because
take it, bro.
that's kind of how I had to like term it to
I
make
love
sure I could
that.
do it. So
Oh,
it was always
bro.
like, yeah, no, so can I make can I do that? So it was always like termed as that here
Yeah.
at the very least, because I just wanted to make sure I could
No,
go.
that's great.
And it also wasn't not true. You know what I mean?
No, yeah,
But it also
sure.
like, I don't know how to word it.
Wow.
But anyways,
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
it's a fun fact for you. But yeah.
Before we move to question 3, I would love to talk more about how much of a processor you are. Like, where did that come from? Why is that your nature? Process it for me.
My gut was to make an anxiety joke, and then I realized that probably wasn't like the best response.
You can say whatever you want.
But there's probably truth in that, to be honest with you. I don't know where. Yeah, let me process that.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't know. I just kind of have always been bent that way, I guess. I will say, I don't know that this is actually an answer to that question, but maybe ties to it a little bit at least. Was when I was in middle school, I was encouraged to start journaling for the first time, particularly like journaling prayers and stuff like that in my faith walk, but a lot of that being a very like prayers, but also like prayers, but processing in those prayers. You know what I mean? Like in
Yeah.
a very personal way, like not necessarily being like writing out checkbox things or even like, this is what I did today. I've never been like a diary sort of person. So anyways, I'll just say, I don't know if it's really an answer to the question, but I do think that starting kind of a rhythm of journaling that young probably has been a piece of me processing a lot. I feel like I just also really like to understand why, I guess, like why
Yeah.
I'm feeling certain things or why certain things are happening. It's funny. I've always made a joke where like on the Myers-Briggs or something like that, people talk about like, are you a feeler or are you a thinker? And it's
Yeah.
like, I know I'm a feeler. I'm for sure a feeler. However, like girl can think through her feelings.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question at all.
No, I think so.
Do you feel like you're a processor?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you feel like you're a processor? What does that look like for you?
I think it's a lot of thinking before I do any action.
Mm.
And sometimes it's overthinking,
Sure.
like all of us.
Sure.
But I think I do take like a beat and like, okay, what am I going to do about this?
Mm.
And even taking a split second to think before I speak or act is really helpful for me.
Mhm.
And some things are like big life events, so like I'm thinking about them more. And then eventually I'll take them to a trusted friend, be like, okay, here's what I'm thinking. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, I think I'm a healthy processor for the
Yeah.
most part.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay, question 3. Unless you had
Yes.
something else.
Well, I will say, I will
Please.
add,
Go for it.
as I'm processing, I will say that I do think also being in like counseling
Yeah.
for my anxiety when I was that young also probably did like, I was diagnosed specifically with like a generalized anxiety disorder, which is basically when you like take something very simple and it spirals out of control for like simply. And so I feel like in that counseling process, there was almost like a, not encouragement to counsel myself in like a bad way, but just in like learning to stop to track my thoughts, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Interesting.
To kind of be like, oh, this is like I'm currently afraid of this thing. And then like kind of having to bring myself to reality of like, wait, is that actually a thing? Why am I afraid of that? Whatever. So I think that like being aware of the thoughts and feelings I was having at a young age and being encouraged to like address those things to either help like ground them back to reality
Yeah.
or understand why they were there to bring peace to the like deeper thing underneath the surface actually probably is a decent part as to why I'm such a big processor as I'm thinking about it.
It's a phenomenal answer.
Okay.
That was
I don't know. I haven't
awesome.
really thought about it before, so I'm glad you asked that question.
I'm glad we're recording.
Here we are.
That was great.
So, yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Anywho,
Okay, wow.
there we go.
Question 3.
Question 3.
How can I be a better friend to you?
Steven, no, you're literally already a great friend.
Whatever. I actually have an answer for you. Not from me, about you, but what I think you would think about me. Well, I don't think you would think this about me, but I think this about me.
You need to go first because now I'm confused.
I think this about me and our relationship. You're probably not thinking about it, but this is an example of me overthinking, I guess. You are very good at checking in with me seemingly randomly, or maybe you have like a notification like, oh, it's time to check in with Steven.
I don't have a notification set.
But you're really good about checking in with me, like, hey, how are you doing with whatever we talked about, either a personal or work thing from our last lunch or whatever. And I always feel so touched. I'm like, oh, someone is thinking about me. Like, no one does that. You're the only person. Oh, man. You're one of the only people.
Cyphers probably does that.
Now and again. But I'm doing it for other people all the time. Not a brag.
Yeah.
But like having someone do it for me is amazing. And sometimes I feel just normal about it and just like sweet and touched that you would. And sometimes I feel like, I wish I did that more with her.
Oh, you're fine. It's really okay.
So I guess my answer for me that you have never thought about would be, I want to check in with you more.
Oh.
Because you do it for me so often.
Well, that's kind. Yeah, I've never thought about that before. Also, I'm just still laughing at the like.
No, yeah, I got there eventually.
You got there. Same though. I feel that. Yeah, that's so kind. I don't really know how to respond to that. But
okay, well.
Yeah, I've never thought about it before, but that's very kind. Yeah, I don't really know that I have an answer for that. I feel like I said, just our conversations have always been so encouraging and just like, yeah, I feel like you're just an incredible listener and question asker. And I also I feel like I also just learn from you in things you're processing yourself. Like, I think one of the biggest questions, this is kind of a sidebar, but one of the best questions you've asked me was, I asked some question to the degree of like, what is your biggest advice for me in the season I've been in of kind of having my hands in a few different things and really kind of figuring out what it looks like to move forward. I asked some question with that sentiment, and you kind of, as you do, kind of like sat for a minute, you thought, and you said, who are the people you want to invest in? And that really took me aback because I just feel like that's not the question most people would say, but it was so helpful and clarifying of just kind of like, it doesn't always necessarily have to be about the what. Like that's important too, but just like really honing in on the like, who are really the people that you want to invest in? And then subsequently, what does that look like? You know what I mean? But kind of flipping the order that sometimes like intuitively this industry looks at things. I thought that was super powerful and insightful. That was just kind of a sidebar.
No, I don't remember that.
But it was like, I was like, wow, that was profound,
I
Steven.
like that question, though. I should write that down.
I was like, it was a really good question that you asked. And I was like, anyways, or a really good statement, whatever it was. So I don't know that I have an immediate answer for how you can be like a better friend.
It's okay. I had my own answer.
But how can I be a better friend to you?
Yeah, I don't know. You're already doing something that no one else does for me. And like, I appreciate it and see it every time and feel cared for and loved. That's rare to like get that from someone. So yeah, you're doing a great job.
But let me just connect the question then from me.
Okay.
What, just because it feels like, anyways, I think I might get, no, never mind. I'm not gonna ruin it for myself. What are the ways in general that you tend to feel the most cared about or loved? It's kind of a backdoor way of me asking the same question, but without you feeling as awkward, hopefully, except for the fact that I just acknowledged.
No, it's okay. I think being a safe place is good. Being a peaceful and safe place, like letting me talk about things that I'm interested in, which isn't a lot of things, but there's been a few times we've gone to lunch and you're asking me like, okay, what are you listening to? Or like, what's a song that you love? And I turn into a different person talking about some song that either no one's ever heard of or it's been out for 30 years and I just found it and I'm geeking out about it. And like, I think one of the songs was Transatlanticism by Death Cab for Cutie. And I just start talking about it for like 5 minutes and I'm like so happy about it. And I realized, what? Why did I just do that? But having the opportunity to feel that safe to be excited about something. I feel like I'm not excited about things around a lot of people, but I can be around you. That's really good and helpful. So like a safe place is what I'm looking for in a friend. And not everyone has to have my personality. I know I'm strange.
You're really not strange.
But if they can be safe, that's good. Someone with good communication is very helpful.
What does that mean in the context of a friendship?
We don't have to talk like every day, but when we do talk, I want it to be a good conversation. When we do hang out in person, I want it to feel chill and not like I have to be someone else or have to be on. If I can just be me, that's awesome. Loyalty is also important to me, especially after going through a divorce with someone I had known for so long. And all the stuff that happened in that, I feel like it really highlighted loyalty for me. Not that like I'm always right or anything, or like you have to be hanging out with me over everyone else, but just like, I don't know.
I hear what
Does that
you're
make
saying.
sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
totally. Yeah.
Those are some things.
Yeah, well, that's good. Those are good answers. I hear that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was the first section, first 3 questions.
All right.
We're going to take a break, come back and do the next 3. Welcome back. We are now into the second section of the questions with Maggie. How you doing so far?
Doing good. This is fun.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've ever been on a podcast, so.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
There have been so many podcasts running out of this office, right?
Well,
You haven't been on one?
No, well, so, okay, here's the thing. The Made It in Music podcast, Well, I guess, I don't know. My job has had so many iterations that one, my job has just never been super like tied to our podcast, but also our podcast over the last couple of years has been a lot of, instead of like separate interviews, has been like repurposing trainings that
Sure,
like we
yeah.
do so many trainings that it's like hand selecting a couple here and there and planning them out because they're already so helpful and often are like interviews and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So yeah, no, I haven't.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to
Anywho,
be the first.
yeah,
This is awesome.
it's fun. I could be forgetting something, but I don't think I am.
If you are, they suck anyway. So.
Okay.
Okay. Question 4.
Mhm.
Oh, brother. What matters most to you right now?
Golly, Stephen. Sheesh.
Yeah.
Gee whiz. Sorry, I'm making fun of myself because my sister recently said gee whiz. And
Like, unironically? Or ironically? Okay, yeah.
unironically. And so now it's a phrase that I would like to incorporate
Bring it back.
more frequently.
Yeah.
I just think it's kind of funny. Anyways, what was the question?
What matters most to you right now?
Heard.
Especially in this time of transition where so many things are up in the air.
Yeah.
What are you holding on to?
Like questions only. That's fine. Sorry.
No, don't
Cut out dead space, but
no, we're gonna leave it all in so everyone knows how long it took. No, it's good that you're processing.
Yeah. I think there's been a lot of processing of just, well, what matters most. I think I've had a lot of processing, even over this last week, honestly, of just, I mean, things maybe I've known before, but just being reminded of, things that matters most. That didn't really answer your question. For example, I think remembering even in the job transitions, whatever, like at face value, I've wrestled with a lot of questions of kind of like, to our point earlier, recognizing, that the way my time looks, the way my weeks look is going to look really different. And, I've wrestled with insecurities of what does it look like to do two things that a lot of people don't do simultaneously necessarily, in particular being kind of involved in artist management stuff while also songwriting. And just having questions about that. But I feel like I've just been increasingly reminded of just how much people matter, and like that being really so focal and like core to whatever is happening. And I mean, obviously it goes without saying in a lot of ways, but like, I think really I've just been reminded of like what matters most really is Jesus in my life and continuing to trust the story that he has so graciously allowed me to walk in so far. But then not only like walking in the practical, this is the next job I'm in and like whatever, but like, okay, how do I like love people in the spaces along the way? I feel like has been a big thing that I've been reminded of in terms of like what matters most. And so, yeah, I think, learning what it looks like to prioritize relationships, maybe even differently than I have before, and God in those relationships, I guess, I think is my immediate answer. I don't know.
That's a good answer.
What's your answer? I feel like I'm going to think of other things too.
I don't know, dude. This is why I said I was nervous before we get started, because it's like, I know the questions, but I try not to think of the questions because I feel like it's better if I think about it in the moment. But I'm also really bad on the spot. So I don't really know what the answer is. We had a very long week, Centricity. There was a radio conference in Christian music this past week, and I had the blessing of going down there and seeing some of our artists perform. And before I went down there, this is my second year going, I said to myself, okay, I'm not going to try and get to know everybody. There's so many people from so many different parts of the nation there for this conference. Like, let me just find a few, get to know them, and then reconnect with the people that I already knew from last year or other events or whatever. And I think that's important to me, just like connecting, investing in the relationships that I want to have, and not trying to spread myself too thin. Like, it's hard enough being myself. I can't keep cutting pieces off of me and giving them to other people. Like, I need most of me to stay together. So being conscious of like, okay, who should I pour into? Why is that important? Like, how much of me am I giving them? Hopefully it's everything I can in the moment because I'm not spreading myself too thin. Yeah. Who could I give myself to while still keeping myself whole?
Heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear that. That's good. That's good. I feel like another thing I feel like, I don't know why, I like also have thoughts come to me as you're speaking, but something else too that I feel like has been, I don't know if it's just like being a little more post-college now, or if it's the fact that my brother just graduated from college or what it is, but lately too, I feel like I have just so been like, one, I've been homesick for like one of the first times since I've been here.
That's interesting.
It's been interesting since maybe like my freshman year of college. I'm sure I did. Like, I don't even really recall it, if that makes sense, but it's more so like I probably was at some point. But recently there has just been this like strange homesickness that I feel like has come kind of out of nowhere, to be completely honest with you, that I haven't really experienced before. But it's more so like, I guess my point in bringing that up is I feel like it's highlighted to just how much not only family, like actual like biological family, but like the family you create too, and like friends like family matter.
Yeah.
I feel like increasingly I've just been reminded of kind of the importance of that and what it looks like to just like, I don't know, not only have genuine relationships, but like, yeah, like, I don't know, even that next step of friendships or something like that. I don't really know. Yeah, and just being reminded of time being limited and you never knowing what's going to happen. And yeah, I guess things like that I feel like have been also on my mind a lot.
How long do you think it'll take for you to be homesick of here, like when you go somewhere else?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I'm sure that it would happen. It's hard to picture myself leaving right now because I do feel like I'm going to be here for another bit.
Yeah.
So I guess hard to say. But I think the fact that there are even things that I would be homesick for says something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what about you? Where do you feel like you feel most homesick of? And would you feel homesick of here?
I think the last time I felt homesick was like when we moved to Alabama when I was a kid. Like we lived in Delaware prior to that, and that felt like home to me. It felt like, because my grandparents were there and like a lot of extended family on my mom's side. They're all up there in that area within like an hour's drive from where we lived. So leaving them and leaving a place that felt like secure to move down to Alabama felt so strange. And I would feel like I want to go back there. But like, since living in Alabama and then moving by myself to like Chattanooga area and then moving here, I don't know. I haven't felt homesick of anywhere. And I don't know if I feel homesick about Nashville. Like when I go somewhere else, just for like a small period of time, of course I want to be back in my bed, but it's not like I miss the people or my roommates or whatever. I don't know. Homesickness is not something that ails me that often.
That said, do you feel like you have, like, how would you define home right now?
I have no idea.
Just, do you feel like you have like a physical, I guess just like what feels like home or who feels like home or however you want to answer that?
This might be bad or toxic on the surface at least, but like I feel like work is home for me. Like a lot of those people are great people to work around. They feel like family, like it's a great bunch. I can be myself there. Working with the artists I work with, like they feel like super close friends. So like I feel like I can be myself with them. that's the anchor for me right now.
Yeah.
Which is probably not great because like
I don't think
anything
that's
could change at
necessarily
any
true.
moment, and then like, am I putting too much stock in that? I hope not. But no, it's a testament to who they are and the culture that Centricity has. Like, they've made it a phenomenal place to be.
Yeah. No, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think that's really sweet. And I think it's also really telling of who you are as a person. Just speaking back to even the way that you've cultivated like friendships and relationships while they're people at work, like they're not simply work relationships. I mean, honestly, I feel that a lot too, just kind of regarding the team we've had at Full Circle and how close-knit that is. Like even since there have been changes in our team, like I've seen everyone, which has been really sweet. And like, I know that those relationships will continue too, and so I guess I say that too is like I think it's really sweet in telling that when, like, as someone who, like, you saying, like, maybe that's too much steak because, like, you never know what can happen. As someone who has had the you never know what can happen, you know what I mean? Like, like, what you have built, like, I would guess would still be that in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? So I don't think that's bad at all.
Okay.
I don't know. That's my take.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah. Anyways.
Okay, let's move on. Question 5? Yeah. Oh my. Question 5. What are you holding on to that's holding you back?
I'm not gonna I'm not gonna react to every one of your questions.
Sure.
What am I holding on to that's holding me back? To be honest with you, okay, 2 things.
Okay.
They're kind of correlated though. One is fear of what other people think of me and the things that I do. I think particularly because I enjoy a variety of things, that I'm often scared that if I like take X amount of steps forward this direction, then people are going to question this thing. Or if I take a couple steps this direction, then people will question this thing. And I think that sometimes it keeps me not fully, but somewhat at a standstill in a variety of areas, if that makes sense. But the root of that, I think, at least, is just a fear of perception, which sucks and is dumb. So sure. I think that for sure is something that I hold on to a little bit too much that holds me back, or opinions or like things that, have been said before, maybe not about me specifically, but about how the industry works that then get me in my head and make it so I don't want to release something, you know what I mean? I don't want to release something, or I don't want to help here, or I don't want to whatever, So I think that is some of it. And then I think too, it correlates, but also I feel like it's a little bit different, is just like general boldness. But honestly, like this is probably not something we've talked about before, but something that I just really genuinely enjoy, that probably won't come to a shock to you, but I just don't think we've explicitly talked about before that I can remember, is like actual like speaking or writing outside of songwriting about things that I feel like the Lord is showing me or doing or whatever, fill in the blank. Like I truly like love that. It gives me life. And for whatever reason, I have felt also a lot of fear around that over the last probably year-ish in particular. I don't really know exactly how long, on and off for a while, but I don't know, like a fear of sharing something that I feel like the Lord has showed me, but then it being perceived as inauthentic, or me just doing a thing, or like putting it on social media and then it suddenly being a thing or whatever. Like there's a fear in general too of, this is, I guess, a third thing that's holding me back. But a third correlated thing, I think, is I'm often afraid of making things I care about a thing.
Interesting.
And I think that it's not all bad that I have that fear, but I think it's also unnecessary and super counterproductive. You know what I mean? And so I think that's one of those things. And so yeah, I guess fear is kind of the core of all of those things. Fear of perception, fear of, I don't even know for sure with kind of the second category I talked about exactly what it is. To some degree, fear of perception, but also I guess a fear of inauthenticity or fear of being wrong.
Yeah.
I think too a fear of perception, not simply in like the music regard, but I wrestle a lot with how the church handles certain things or certain conversations. And I'm someone who I've seen a lot of hurt regarding conversations of religion that I think it makes me fearful sometimes to share anything, even if I really believe in what I'm saying, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's this weird dichotomy where I think I'm someone who like very genuinely empathizes and is sensitive to things, but I think then sometimes it backfires in me not sharing things that I also feel like very genuinely and personally the Lord is doing in my life because I'm afraid that someone somewhere is going to not perceive it well, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, I don't know. Those are those things.
Those are good answers. I think for me, at least for this episode,
Sure.
It's the fear of not being good enough, which is like not unique. I think it's a pretty common like millennial mindset. But I was watching this interview with John Bellion that just came out. And it was a long interview. It's probably around this long. It was like 2.5 hours long. And there's a line he says, it's just like, you don't have to get better to be good enough. And I was like, dang. Something so idiotically simple, but said by someone that I really respect. It's like, maybe he's right. Even though like there's all this evidence that also proves that, whether spiritual or just like in the world in general. It's like, yeah, you don't have to have it all figured out. You can just be, and that's good enough. But I've always struggled with that.
What do you feel like what was the most freeing part of that statement for you? And then also, like, what are the areas that you don't have to answer? But what are the areas that you feel that, Stephen? No pressure.
I think just hearing it from someone who has had a lot of success, and of course a lot of pressure to go along with that success and deliver multiple different times for other artists and his own artistry, and like having the industry, like dealing with people in the industry as well, for him to say like, okay, after all that, here's what I've come to.
Yeah.
You don't have to get better to be good enough. That was just so refreshing because like I'm nowhere near on that level of importance, and I'm still dealing with those thoughts. What was the second part? Oh yeah, what areas? Dear God. I think for sure in work. Right now I have a healthy drive of like, okay, I've been working at Centricity and A&R for 3 years. I've been working with artists for 2 years. I want to like deliver. Like I want to bring out some hits. And like I want to have some good successes for my artists. Like how can I be proactive and get them with the right people and do all the right stuff? Right now it's healthy. And right now I don't feel good enough. Like I've done that well enough, but it's not like I'm spiraling. It's driving me. Where I may be spiraling is my personal life. Just like, man, I just don't feel like I'm enough for anyone around me. And that was incredibly highlighted after my divorce or during all that process. Cause like, I've always dealt with this ideal of not feeling good enough. And then with what happened, it seemed like obvious proof to me that, okay, yeah, you weren't good enough. This is why I did these things. And hearing it from like friends and therapists being like, no, like the decision they made is because they messed up. It's not because it's not a reflection of you, but try telling that to my brain. So that's been the hard part. And I think I've gotten better as the year has gone by, as we get further removed from it. But like every now and again, that's a concept that'll pop up in my worst moments. Like, yeah, you're not good enough. Obviously, look at all the things that happened because of that.
What would you, I have 2 questions. The first one is, how would you define not feeling, like what is your definition of enough? Like what makes you not feel good enough? Like how do you even define that?
I don't know. I don't think there is an answer. It might help if I found one, because then I could be like, okay, yeah, I'm grabbing it. It's tangible now. But I think it's just a ghost to chase. Just be like, okay, yeah, I'm not measuring up to something. Let's pick being good enough, whatever that means. And like, just, that's the thing that plagues you. Go chase after that, knowing you'll never find it.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's sad.
Because I can't remember if this is exactly how you phrased it, but I think you may have phrased it, tell me if I was wrong, as like, what are you holding on to that's holding you back did you say a fear of not being enough or not feeling like you're good enough?
I think the fear of not being good enough.
So what do you think would look different in your life if you didn't have that fear?
Good question. I think I'd have more confidence, which is growing every day, thankfully, because of just having the opportunity to find myself after such a large transition, or being forced to have the opportunity. I'd have more confidence, and that just goes so far. I'd have more confidence personally, just like in the way I look and feel and work and everything, and that would probably solve 75% of my problems. Yeah.
Heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Thank you.
It's a really good question.
Good Lord. Let's move on. Yeah, we're good on time, I think. Okay. Oh my. Number 6.
Do they just keep getting worse? Like, do they just like?
They kind of keep getting worse.
And we're only on 6. Okay, it's fine. No worries.
Oh Lord. When was the last time you made yourself proud?
Oh. Define made yourself proud.
You did something or felt some type of way, and inside yourself, like, yeah, good job.
Okay. I guess the reason I highlighted those words is I feel like there's a slight different connotation in saying like, when's the last time you made yourself proud, as in like intentionally did something.
Got it.
So that you would be proud of it, versus like did something and then kind of retroactively were like, I'm proud of myself for that.
That's the way I was thinking, but you could think the first way.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I didn't really have an answer for the first way. I had an answer for the second way, but that's why I clarified.
Got it.
Or at least I think I have an answer for the second way. To be honest, like, I don't know, it feels even weird to say when you're proud of something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think that I'm currently proud of the way that I've been able to handle this transition this year. I think just in having more responsibilities, for one, but also there just being kind of a lot of things to figure out in those responsibilities too, like it not simply being a checklist, but kind of, doing that and doing it in a season where that overlaps with a lot of personal unknowns. While there's also a lot of things that I for sure am like, I wish I was doing this better, or I think this or whatever. Like, while there's for sure also a lot of self-critique, it definitely does, I think, correlate with some just being proud of myself for stepping into it and how I've been able to handle it, or at least that I've been able to handle it to some degree, at least so far, I think is the immediate answer that comes to mind, which sounds really, I don't know, it's a weird question to answer, you know what I mean? It can feel weird to say that, but I think that's probably the main one.
That's good.
Yeah. I'm debating if I say the other one, but
say it.
Ooh, the other one, honestly, is probably just in doing long distance. Like, I'm like, because that's been it feels like a silly thing to bring up on a podcast to some degree. It's not silly, but like, you know what I mean? Particularly just because relationship has always been so anxiety inducing for me, or at least often have. The fact that like Zach and I have been able to navigate it the way that we have and done that long distance and had to like kind of attack the like unique anxieties and things that have come with that process. Like, I'm very proud of the fact that like we have made it this far doing that. So
it should be.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's me. What about you? What are you proud of?
I think recently, and this is going to be a work answer, I realized that like, okay, I think I have my footing in my job.
Yeah.
It's only taken 3 years. But that's what has caused me to think, okay, I got to deliver hits. And, like, I got to do better. I got to do more for my artists and the company. Because I feel like finally, like, okay, I know what I'm doing. And I can hardly say that about any other aspect of my life. So, like, coming to that realization, be like, okay, yeah, I feel confident
Mm.
in this area. I'm proud of that. Like, I've grown a lot.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that was in the past couple weeks, I think.
Yeah. I love that. I have 2 questions again.
Go for it.
One is, what do you feel like is the biggest thing you've grown in your job? Like when you're saying like, I've grown a lot, like what do you feel like is one of the first things that come to mind of the biggest ways you've grown in your job?
I think a lot of the creative A&R process. So, like, getting a song session to happen, so like with an artist, with a producer and a songwriter, picking the songs with the artists and whoever else is in the room, maybe a manager or someone else, maybe marketing, taking next steps, getting the song recorded, turned in, hopefully on time, paid for, in a budget, and just like formulating, okay, what could the rest of the record be around this song? That was just something I was so unfamiliar with, and I would have never have done without just doing it for the first time. So having done it kind of 1.5 times, we did it for Natalie for her first project, and I'm in the middle of it for Bay right now. I just feel good, like, okay, this is the process. And of course, things randomly pop up all the time, but having a handle on the process, which was very scary before starting with Natalie, feels good.
Yeah. That's good. What do you feel like, this was not the original second question. I don't remember the second question though now, so I need to remember it. But what, in that process of just you even saying like putting stuff on a record or whatever, like I guess this is a more practical job question, but what has been the biggest thing you've learned about like what makes a song one that should go on? Like if you had to try to define the biggest thing you've learned about what makes a song be one that should go on the record or project, what would it be?
I think it revolves around whatever the first song is. That really sets the tone for everything else that goes around it. So once we have the first song, so I guess we'll use Bay as an example. His first song was called Brand New. Kind of like
It's fire.
Yeah, it's a fun, like up-tempo, singy song. And then I'm thinking, okay, like we probably need a mid-tempo, we need a ballad, we need another up song, we need another like radio follow-up. Maybe we need one radio follow-up that's more like down the middle, and then one that's more kind of like Brand New, depending on what the people like from Brand New, and like thinking about, okay, then what's the rest of the record maybe next year? Like we got to start writing the rest of the record this year so it can be recorded this year to be released next year. So like thinking about the entire process from like a 30,000 foot view, which I love. I love the big idea stuff. Yeah, that's it.
Heard. Yeah, that's good. I remembered my other question.
Okay.
It was, you said something about like obviously being a place where you just like want to really deliver and help your artists, both from a professional standpoint, like with Musically, and then also personally for your artists. What do you feel like are the biggest things that you deliver or want to deliver? Like, what do you think are the most important things for you in your role, professionally and personally, are to deliver to your artists?
I think the answer for both is trustworthiness.
That's good.
Just continually proving to them on a personal side, like, hey, you can trust me with whatever is going on in your life.
That's good.
And I had the opportunity to do that because I was going through something so difficult, and I came to them with that, and they were amazing and kind and understanding.
Yeah.
So like that helped us build a lot of trust.
Yeah.
And we also try to meet once a month with coffee or lunch, whatever, just for updates about everything. So having that is super helpful. On the musical side, constantly thinking of ways to like get them with someone that they're interested in who is also a writer in town, or just like thinking of ways we can maximize what they're doing with the songs that they like, and listening to them and hearing what they like about other songs and thinking like, okay, well, if you like that, maybe this person could do that, or maybe we could shift the way you're doing this, blah, blah, blah. Just being a good listener goes a long way, I think.
Yeah.
That helps with building trust and keeping it, because like trust can erode so quickly. And I would hate to do anything to ever let that happen personally or professionally, because you can't get that back without a lot of time.
Yeah, that's good. They're good answers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take another break. We'll be back. Don't worry about us.
That might have been our best one yet.
I think it was. So much force. Hello, we're back. Oh, brother. We are into the final stretch.
The final stretch.
The final countdown.
Mm-hmm.
The last 4 questions.
The drama.
I know. Let's see what they are.
And then we're never speaking again.
Yeah, this is kind of it.
This is kind
it's
of
all
it
been
for
leading
us.
up to this.
It's wow.
I hope it was worth
I
it.
really wish you would have told me that before you asked me to do this, because I probably would have said no.
What if I did do that? Especially with Jonathan, who was like, yeah, this is it.
Especially,
I don't ever want to see you again.
That's funny.
Okay, question 6. What was the last piece of art you consumed that inspired you?
The last piece of art I consumed that inspired me. What have I done lately? That's a great question. Like, I can think, like, a few examples come to my head, but I'm trying to figure out, like, what was actually, like, the last one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I have an answer if you want me to go first.
Yeah, you can go first.
There's a song called Rock and Roll by an artist named Dijon that I really enjoy. And I found Dijon last year because he put out I found him last year. He put out a record, I think in 2021, called Absolutely. But it hit me last year and I played the heck out of it the whole year. Just so good, but not usually something that I'm into. So I love that record. And then I went back to his back catalog, some of his older stuff. And this song Rock and Roll is about like him talking to a significant other and be like, and the significant other is like, yeah, I don't really listen to the radio. I don't like popular stuff. And just him being exacerbated, like, what? You don't like Prince or Stones or whatever? And this is just a funny concept to me to put in a song. And the song sounds so strange. Like there's a lot of like yelling and screaming at the end.
Sure.
And his voice is just so unique. And this is new for me, like listening to Black people make music that isn't R&B, rap, gospel. And like them having confidence to be like, yeah, I'm weird. This is sick. And I love it so much. Like, so I love it conceptually. I love the performance that he gives. The instrumentation is just so weird and strange and fun. I'll put it in a playlist or whatever for this episode. It's a really fun song. And like every time I hear it, I'm like, God, this is so creative and good. And like I listened to it right before I came in here. And it pumped me up. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. I want to create something too. So yeah, that's my answer.
I love that. I was going to ask you a follow-up question, but you kind of just answered it. But if you have additional answers, I'm going to ask it anyways. I was going to say, like, if you had to say what it inspires in you, what does the song inspire in you? And it sounds like one of those things is to create like that. Is there more to that? Or
I think to have the confidence to create outside of the box, because that song and his artistry feels outside whatever box you want to put it in. So the fact that like he's doing something so strange, but it feels good and I connect with it and like other people do as well. It's like, man, this is so nuts. And like, I want to be a part of that. Not to be like, I want to make a song like that, but just, I want to do something cool and different in the way I want to express myself. I think that's some of my favorite art, like stuff that inspired me to do this podcast in general, like Dune 2 and Jacob Collier's Jesse 4 and Rick Rubin's book. Like, I'm not going to write a book. I'm not going to create an album. I'm not going to make a movie. I'm going to do this thing. But they inspired me to do something creative and outside of my normal box. And that song does that too. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
That's good. I have thought of a couple answers.
Okay.
2 answers.
Great.
One is Unsung Hero.
Whoa.
I recently watched.
Explain.
Explain. I feel for me,
I assume you mean the movie and not the song.
Yes, the movie. Yeah, the movie Unsung Hero.
Yeah.
And I think for me in that, even more like it was probably the story itself, but really I feel like what it inspired in me was really the importance of believing in someone.
Interesting.
Just given like for those who have or have not seen the movie, like the belief that Helen Smallbone has in David Smallbone, just like the belief in someone and what they are feeling called to or what they're passionate about, just how like in the midst of the high and lows, belief alone in that person and in God in that process, like even when it's something as crazy as what their story looked like, and the way it's conveyed in that movie. Yeah, just I guess the importance of belief in people, I feel like really is what that inspired. And then I don't know, you had such a strong reaction to that.
No, I've also seen it, and I thought it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it was more like, I mean, I thought the movie was also well done.
Yeah.
But I think it was really the story itself that most was impactful to me.
I love that.
And then the other thing kind of feels random, but a song I think I really listened to all the way through this week. I'd like seen it on Instagram and stuff like that, but then went and listened to it all the way through. And it's, do you know Ava Liv Mabry? Have you heard of her?
No.
She's a young artist. I know she's done stuff forever because I've seen her on socials and stuff forever, but kind of up and coming. And she has a song, it's called Roman Empire.
Okay.
Roman Empire's never actually in the song, but it's like, it sounds silly because it's about like the Roman Empire trend that there has been of like, what's your Roman Empire? But the song starts with like, what if Jesus comes back before I build a house, have the kids, like have the husband, have the kids, something like that. And the whole song is basically just stream of consciousness. It's like all over the place, but it's like all these, I think, very real questions or things that are like those thoughts that kind of spiral on repeat for people. And I think what inspired me about that was, one, her voice is just beautiful. Like she's an incredible voice. But was the fact that while it didn't check a lot of the boxes of what, you know, is tends to be described as like commercial and it has this hook that comes back around and grabs people again, like it so drew me in, you know what I mean? And it was so real and worked. Still like so worked. And so I guess in a similar way to what you were speaking to was just kind of like the creativity, even when it didn't necessarily fit other things. And just her, I feel like especially her being young and being willing to like do that, you know what I mean? Because I feel like especially people who are kind of young and up and coming, but have a lot of voices of like, you know what I mean? Have a lot of voices in their ears of what they should be doing. She seems to be someone who's pretty well surrounded with like a knowledge of the industry and stuff like that for her to just like do it, you know? I think was also inspiring because it felt very just genuine to her and her thoughts, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's good. I want to talk more about what you got from Unsung Hero and the belief of it all. Mm-hmm. Is there anyone who you remember who, when you were younger, saw something in you and believed in something before you saw it in yourself?
Yes. And it might make me emotional again too. Well, yes. So a big part of my kind of journey in songwriting, like I said, has been in the midst of kind of anxiety and stuff like that. And so my piano teacher when I was younger, it's so funny. She taught piano and voice to me and both my brother and sister. But like a little context too, just this is more so a fun fact, but my younger brother and sister were always like the choir kids, the musical kids, the leads and everything kids. And then there was like me who like quite literally when it came to piano recitals and stuff like that, I always made it through playing piano. But one of my favorite memories is that one time we were supposed to sing Hakuna Matata.
Of course.
Which means no worries.
Of course.
And your girl had a panic attack. And did not in fact perform. And so anyways, I give that just as a little snapshot of like from the time I was really young, she saw that. She knew all my brothers and sisters. Eventually, my brother and sister kind of like went off and were super just involved in community theater and other things like that, where they stopped doing lessons with her. But I continued to, and then eventually I honestly forgot. I'm about to share part of the story that I forgot, but my mom remembers, and she's reminded me of recently, and it's made me emotional as I think back on it. But come high school, a big part of kind of my testimony was feeling like the Lord asked me to trust, like put just that word heavy on my heart my freshman year of high school. Didn't know what that meant. Ended up on like this random retreat where I felt like the Lord said like, hey, trusting me means being willing to face your biggest fears for me, which sounds psycho. But like truly when I think back on that, I'm like, the fact that that was so clear at like 14 for some reason blows my mind. But for whatever reason it was super clear, and that led to me showing up at auditions for my school's musical. But then one of those next steps was showing my parents the songs I'd been writing, and then showing this piano teacher the songs I'd been writing for these several years that I hadn't yet. And I remember after I'd showed my mom had kind of encouraged me while dropping me off at my like piano lesson right for that reach of like, hey, you should show like Miss Renee like the songs you've been working on, like one of the songs you've been working on. And so like come the end of my lesson or whatever, I just asked her if I could show her something. And so I did. And this is the part I forgot, but my mom has recently reminded me of. But, and again, keep in mind that this woman has like seen several meltdowns and all sorts of stuff at this time. Yeah. I showed her whatever. And as I left her house to go back out to the car where my mom was waiting, she yelled upstairs to her husband, who's a producer, and said, Mike, we have a songwriter on our hands. And just thinking of that is like so kind. Like just thinking back on like, I don't know why, just that moment like makes me emotional. But anyways, because of being able to show her that, it just so happened that at that time I didn't know, but our church, she in addition to giving individual lessons, also ran a kids program at our church that she had created from the ground up, but like not just like it was a whole thing. Yeah. And it'd been funny because I had tried to go through this this program it was called K-Rock, like Kids Rock at the time, but hadn't even been able to get through like a semester of it because I was so anxious. It was like I had tried and then I quit halfway through because I like was like, I'm not gonna be able to do the performance. And so had never actually gone through it. Both my siblings had been deletes in some of the things, all of it, but I hadn't. But it just so happened that kind of what she was doing there and at the church, together, her and the church were creating a youth album for the first time.
That's cool.
And like right at that time, I showed her that song. And so I got to be one of the 6 songs on that album. And it was like that journey for the longest time. That honestly was the testimony that I would share was the fact that like, somehow, like, again, being so paralyzed by anxiety in so many areas of my life, and then music specifically just kind of feeling off the table for me in a lot of ways. The fact that her even seeing all of that believed in me and was like, yeah, we're going to put you on this, and like you're going to perform in front of a couple thousand people, like, and like we're going to like do it, just like moral stories, yes. And if you want to know something sweet and full circle,
what do you know?
Is that her and her daughter, who it sounds like is actually also kind of struggling with a lot of the things I struggled with now, happened to be in town in Nashville because they have family around here just like a month or 2 ago. And so she got to stop by the studio. Amazing. And like we got to catch up here, which was just super sweet. So anyways, she's the first person who comes to my mind. Yep, that was a lot.
No,
my bad.
Thank you for sharing that. I had not heard that. That's amazing.
Yeah, so.
Jeez.
Yeah.
When was the last time you believed in someone who needed it?
Who needed it? I don't know. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, when's the last time I believed in someone? I feel like there's a lot of people around me that, whether or not they know I believe in them, you know? But it's hard to say if they needed it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So it feels hard to even, like, I could list a bunch of people I believe in. And again, I don't know if they see it or not, but I have a friend named Emily who has a coffee cart and that helps empower kids in Thailand, like coming out of the orphan system, and she's incredible, and she's like starting this whole thing from the ground up, and I very much so believe in her. I very much so believe in my friend Riley and her artist career, my friend Taryn in songwriting, and he's written a musical. I believe in him. My friend Nick, who I write with all the time, is an incredible producer. I believe in him. I believe in Alex and his production. I believe in Jonathan. There are lots of people, like I could go on and on of people I feel like I really believe in. I believe in you, obviously. So whether they need it or not, who's to say?
Yeah.
But I believe in Zach, obviously. Maybe that's would be my like core answer. I don't know.
Sure.
He's writing a novel, which is like a beast of a project. Which is crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, my sister in New York and all of the things that she's juggling and processing through. I could say that for every person in my family. You know what I mean? It feels like, yeah. So I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah.
I'm going to ask something that we can absolutely remove from it.
Gosh. Okay. Yep.
But like growing up with what you grew up with, like talented siblings in music, you were also trying to do something in music, but had something that hindered you from expressing it totally in front of people.
Yeah.
How did that feel? Like, I'm sure there was a lot of comparison going on, especially since it's like in the house. Like, oh, these two people came from the same place I came from. Like, did you feel like they were better than you were, or just like you were different in a negative way? Like, how did that affect you?
I don't think, so growing up, I don't think it really, I don't know. I don't have like an immediate feeling like there was a strong bad emotion in that. I think it was more so like, it wasn't necessary. I don't feel like I felt the weight of like other people feeling like I couldn't do something.
Sure.
If that makes sense. I think it was more so just kind of like, I didn't want to be the lead in the musical. So
I feel that 100%.
The fact that like our interests in music were different.
Okay, yeah.
I think kept from a lot of that comparison stuff. I was like, I did not want to be my sister, like, and do all the things she was doing. I didn't. And honestly, she didn't really care to just write songs. You know what I mean? So it was kind of sweet in that way, you know, where like while kind of involved in music, they weren't the same necessarily. And so, yeah, I didn't feel like there was a ton of that there. I will say, if anything, like they've been my biggest cheerleaders, my siblings, like in the process. But the other thing, to be honest with you, is I never like, particularly when I first started songwriting and stuff like that when I was little or playing piano, like I didn't really think much of it except for that I enjoyed it and it was a way of processing. So, you know what I mean? In that sense, too, there wasn't really like
there's no pressure yet.
There was no pressure yet. Yeah. I'd say that probably the part that later on was kind of the biggest wrestling, which even wasn't like a crazy negative thing. You know what I mean? Was more so that my biggest insecurities probably in that department-ish within my house or whatever would have just been regarding my voice, which again weren't really incited by them at all, but more so just come the end of high school because I hadn't invested in it the same way they had growing up. I was always insecure about my voice, which was just the nature of the beast. Like, I think this isn't clean cut, but we've probably spoken to this before, but I think there are some people who songwrite because they sing and they really want to sing their own stuff, so they start writing. And there are people who sing because they write and really enjoy writing, and I was for sure the latter. In a lot of ways. And so I think there were like dreams, like I do know there are little dreams in my heart. Particularly I remember when I was younger, like seeing people leading worship and being like, oh, I want to do that. But like outside of that, I didn't really care to, like, I didn't have, I think, crazy dreams to like be a singer, you know?
Totally.
And so I think the one, if there was one, it probably would be regarding my voice. Yeah.
Okay. How do you feel about your voice now?
It's ever evolving. I think better than I ever have, but also like still evolving, like for sure. I'm really grateful that now, like, my voice has developed or like more. Honestly, one of the most helpful things in my vocal development probably was the fact that my friend and the worship pastor at my church, when I took a gap year, um, I had never really sung in my chest voice.
Yeah.
And obviously, particularly, like, think 6 years ago in worship culture where it was a lot of belting
Sure.
and stuff like that was, like, kind of tough. And so he was kind of like, we're gonna do that now. And so I was like, that's gonna sound really bad. And it did. But then, anyways, so I've grown a lot since then is the moral of the story. So I'm grateful for that, but also often don't feel like the most confident vocalist in a room, for sure. Definitely have a lot to continue learning in. So I don't know, somewhere in the both and, I guess, there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a long way away from.
Well, you didn't answer the question
Whatever
yet.
the question was.
Yeah,
What
no,
was
you're
the
good.
question?
The question, I think, was, I know, I was trying to remember too. I think it
my
was, do you remember someone believing in you?
Oh, geez, that's
when
where we
you
were.
Yeah.
I'm sure my mom believed in me for something.
Sure.
It obviously didn't make that big of an impact on me. No offense.
Gosh.
But I think maybe it's because, like, it's their job
Mm-hmm.
to believe in you. I don't know. Whatever. I think maybe when I was in, like, high school and, like, I joined the choir and started singing stuff. I remember I had a solo. We sang Man in the Mirror one time. And, like, the whole choir, there was a whole arrangement.
Heck
Actually,
yeah.
no, this was like a smaller section of the choir. It was like maybe 4 of each section, bass, tenor, alto, whatever. And I felt like you, like, I wasn't the strongest vocalist. I liked singing, but, like, I wasn't like, I don't want to be the main lead. That's gross. Let someone who wants to do that do that. But I remember singing and people liked it, and our choir teacher, Miss Leonard, shouts out, who's probably still amazing, just gave me a lot of confidence, be like, yeah, you should do this. And, like, I was a sophomore, maybe junior. And there were seniors, like, of course, this is their last year in choir, who were like, nah, bro, you got it. I felt bad. Like, I don't want to take this away from you. Like, this is your last chance to do something if you want to. And they were like, no, dude, you're crushing it. So having the confidence from Miss Leonard and Mrs. Etter, like our band teacher at the time, because, like, I guess it was after the performance.
Were you in band?
Uh-huh.
I forgot about that. What'd you play?
I played trumpet for the most part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Heard.
Remember her saying something like, Steven, you were really good. And I was like, thank you. And of course, I couldn't take a compliment at all back then. Like, I'm
Steven,
okay now.
Steven.
But God, it was so cringy. But looking back, it's nice to have that shot of confidence from people who know what they're talking about, I guess. Like, yeah, you're good. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, geez. I can't believe we got there from whatever the original question was.
Is there anyone you believe in right now?
No, everyone sucks.
Okay.
Yep. Next.
Sounds good.
No, of course. There's, like you, there's so many people that it would take the rest of the day to name everyone.
Yeah.
And I don't want to leave anyone out.
No, literally, that was my struggle as I started talking. I was like, this is a snowball.
I guess the biggest, most obvious one would be Rachel Purcell, who we just signed at Centricity. I'm having the honor of working with her creatively. So to sign someone that I'm going to get to work with is the ultimate example of, like, hey, we believe in what you're doing and we're excited about you. That's always so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my answer.
Heck yeah.
Question 8. No, not 8.
7.
7. I can't do math.
Wait.
It's 7. You're right. It's 7.
We
just had so many other things before.
Are you positive?
I'm positive because I would have remembered this answer because I don't have an answer for it.
Okay.
Number 7. Who do you know personally that inspires you to be better?
Who do I know personally that inspires me to be better? There are so many different definitions of better, or like better at this or that. So that's a really interesting question. So many answers come to my mind.
That's great for you. nothing is coming to my mind.
That's really awkward.
Well, not because everyone sucks, even though I did just say that.
It kind of sounds just like you're reinforcing that idea.
No, it's just because I'm so bad on the spot. And like I said, like I know what these questions are, but I'm trying not to think of them purposefully until the moment. And then I get to the moment, I'm like, crap. Why didn't I think about this?
Yeah. I think, oh gosh, this feels like another snowball question where it feels like if I name one, I have to name like there's so many people that like it just feels like it'll be a snowball. There are literally so many. That's so hard. Like, you know what I mean? Because I feel like so many people inspire so many different things.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so, I mean, a couple that come to my mind are just my sister. I feel like she really inspires me to just kind of like jump in like where you're at, but to also like explore the things you care about, even if they're things you didn't realize you cared about before. Like her being in New York has been very much so just like a catalyst for all of that. But then also she's an incredible friend to people and her like to her people. And so I feel like that continuously inspires me as well. My mom and her just like trust in God and also like the more I think about it. So my mom, quick context, she's like a doctor for kids with special needs, started a center like out of like residency, basically by herself. And like, I think started with a team of like 4. Yeah. Like crazy. Had me and my siblings all within like her first 5 years of operating in that practice. Wow. But like always was a present mom, like always worked full time, but was always a present mom, pours into like hundreds of families who like honestly really need her, like really need help, but is still a good friend and has always woken up at like 4:30 in the morning to spend time with God before going to work my entire life. And like, I feel like increasingly as I get older and I struggle to like get here this morning, which like wasn't even early. I'm like, gosh, golly, how did you do that? So I feel like really, particularly one of the things from her is just like how she's able to rest in God as her. I don't understand her capacity. It truly doesn't make sense to me, actually. Like it doesn't, it quite literally doesn't make sense. So yeah, some of that. Yeah, I feel like there's all sorts of people in this industry who like the way they see people, like really, really see people inspires me. You being one of those people, Stacey Wilbur being one of those people, Seth being one of those people, Katie Moore being one of those people. Yeah, that's another thing that I feel like inspires me. And again, I feel like the snowball could go down well. And I say, I mean, you said personally, but like those also are people that I, you know what I mean? Like, sure, yeah. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Do you want to answer yet? I feel like I'm going to think about this question later and realize that I like am totally also missing other things. Sure. You know?
This is weird because I think I do have an answer, but like I am not incredibly close with this person. Okay. So I hope it's not strange for me to shout them out, but very, very recently we've connected. A friend Dia, who's an artist in town, she's awesome. Yeah. I'm sure she wouldn't mind me saying this, but we both went through our own divorce stories, and she came to a retreat Centricity had last year, and there were a lot of people up for this retreat. Like all the Centricity staff goes, and then we brought on like maybe 10 songwriters in town, and then 20 or so independent artists. Dia was one of these artists. So like we were all up there in Washington State together, but like we just didn't have the time to hang out. Just us or with a small group. So we had never really connected, even though we knew of each other. But we finally linked up maybe like 2 months ago, shared our divorce stories. And I was just taken aback by her strength through all the crap she went through. Oh my. And not even comparing like, my thing's nothing compared to hers, which it's kind of not. But I wasn't even doing that, but just like hearing someone in solidarity talk about their experience and she's still standing. I was just like, man, I want to be someone who's still standing as well. Yeah. And she sent me a text maybe 2 weeks ago, a voice text saying like, hey, I went to church today with with a friend, and my body just felt strange. And I look at the calendar, and like it's been a year on the day since I got divorced, and like I didn't know I'd feel this way, but my body felt it before my brain did, and I was like, I feel that exactly. That's exactly what I went through. So she helps me feel like I'm not alone. I hope I help her do the same. But she makes me want to be better, not necessarily like a better person, just like healed, I guess. Like knowing that someone else is going through something similar, like I want to get better along with them. So yeah, that's the answer. I hope it's not weird.
I don't think it'll be. I don't think it's weird.
We'll see.
I feel like D is chill.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I feel like should be chill.
I hope so.
That's cool.
In a year or whatever. Whenever
this comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my answer.
That's cool. That's a good answer.
I don't think we have time for the next one. Like we're gonna have to cut here and then start a new thing. So we're gonna be back in a second. See ya. Welcome back again. We just
part 83.
Yeah, really. We got so lost in it. We had to cut before we even meant to. So we're on questions 9 and 10. You were trying to fight me on, was the last one 7 or 8? I don't remember. I guess I'll watch the tape and we'll see what happens.
It's all good.
But we are now on questions 9 and 10.
Sounds good.
Oh my. Question 9 is always a doozy for me.
Oh, good. Because these other ones have not been.
They've been so easy.
They've been super simple.
I think this will be easy for you. It won't be easy for me.
Okay.
Question 9. Do you still believe in love? If so, why?
So, do I still... So, it's interesting that you say, do I still believe in love?
Yeah, I think we all just have an innocence growing up, and we're like, we think of love whatever we think it is. We think it's out there, and we believe in it. But as we get older, and there's more heartache and pain and upsetness that creeps in, maybe that ideal gets shaken.
Yeah. And are you specifically asking regarding romantic love?
No.
Just in general?
In general.
Well, for sure. So I'll first say that, like, order of operations, I absolutely believe in love conceptually, like in the sense of, like, not to sound cheesy. I know this is going to sound totally cheesy, but I say it because I mean it, of like, I absolutely believe in like Christ's love for us because I've seen it. Like, I should not be where I am. Like, I've seen that over and over in time, over and over again. I know in my own life. And I know there's lots of questions regarding that, and those questions are absolutely valid. But I, at least speaking from what I believe in my life, that is a concept I believe. And I believe, too, that people in general, nobody can love perfectly, but even in friendships and things like that, I absolutely believe that. Like, I guess it's like hard to, I don't know. This is one of those questions that I feel like is easy to overthink the phrasing of. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I believe, I guess what's throwing me is the in love. I'm believing in love versus like believing love exists or is good. Like, what's the distinction between those things? Is there a distinction? Maybe not. I could be overthinking, but absolutely believe,
I love
like,
this.
absolutely believe that like love is a thing and is worth embodying.
Ooh, expand on that.
Like, I don't know. I absolutely believe love exists, and being able to love others is, one, we'll never do it perfectly, like, worth pursuing. Like, it's worth loving your friendships or loving friends and their friendships. It's worth loving romantic. Like, it's worth pursuing and trying to become what love is. I mean, if you're looking like biblically, whatever, the love is patient, kind, all of those things, like pursuing, like, I guess embodying love in that sense would be like embodying patience, embodying kindness, embodying gentleness, all those things. self-control, whatever. So I guess that's what I meant by like it being worth embodying.
Yeah. Okay.
Romantically, I don't know why that phrase throws me. Maybe because I don't feel like I grew up being someone who ever like at least like intentionally was like, I believe in love. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I don't really feel like I daydreamed about it that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like that's why the like, do you still believe in love thing? I feel like throws me a little bit because I don't know that I necessarily have ever asked myself if I believe in love ever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, or like at least in a romantic sense. Like I don't know that I've ever like I think I've always like hoped it's possible. Like I've seen it possible for other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't think I've ever like consciously thought about it. You know? So I guess in that light, like I do think I believe in it now. Like being in the relationship I'm in, seeing I think the way that again, while never perfect, people do love each other around. I do think that obviously there are a lot of things that fracture relationships and hurt and like make that hard to hope for. Not in any sort of dismission of that. But I guess I'd say I've really never thought about that question or just even that statement a whole lot in general, to be honest with you. But as you ask it, I guess my answer would be like, I do. Like, I think I do at my core, and or at least in a more personal level, I think I increasingly am.
That's a great answer.
You know, it felt like as clear as mud. It felt like a terrible
No.
answer. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I've truly never thought about it. Was that like? Do you feel like you grew up thinking about like or believing in love?
Yeah. I think just media in general, like that's
Sure.
something
Yeah.
that's talked about and it's something that's impressionable for
Yeah.
young people. Like, oh yeah, you find someone to be in love with.
That's fair. And I suppose I'll say like I for sure. It's not that I didn't have those. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
fairy tale like images either. But like, yeah, I don't know. Continue.
So yeah, and then that idea got tarnished. Like, oh, love is so much more than that, than just infatuation. And I think it's good to have that shaken because, like, or at least sooner than later, because then you'll be less upset when you're like, oh, there's so much real life in between all of that that you have to deal with. But the question came up because just after my recent experiences, it was important to ask myself, like, is it still worth trying? Do I still believe in this thing that's seemingly so important? And for this episode, I think my answer is yes. I like what you said, like increasingly so. It's not like absolutely, it's the best thing ever. It's just like I'm trying, bro.
Yeah.
Just little by little. Answer is yes, but I need more and more proof as we go along. Whether that comes through friendships or family or romantic, whatever. It's just, yeah, kind of like I was saying earlier. It's like it's easy to break trust with people. Like for me, it's easy to break trust with that concept, the concept of love. Like, oh, geez, is this what it was supposed to be? Like that didn't. Now that I'm on the other side of it, was that really love? Like, what can I take from my time with my ex? Like, what was real? What was true? And if there were good things, what does that mean for love? Like, why is it so messy? God.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. I have two questions.
Go for
Again,
it.
I don't know why I keep having two questions,
Yes.
but I have two questions. If it's okay, you don't have to answer either of them. But the first one is, when you had your divorce, do you feel like it mostly shattered your perception of romantic love, or did it have an effect on your perceptions of other kinds of love too? And if so, what was that impact?
It definitely had impact on other versions of love. Like, I started examining all of my friendships, be like, okay, they say they're here for me and they care for me, but like, can I believe that? And it just took testing. It's like going to people and opening up to them and being real and honest
and them like not turning away from me over and over again was proof. Like, okay, maybe there is love here. Maybe that is true. I can't speak for progress on romantic relationships. I haven't really been in one since.
Sure.
But I imagine it'll be difficult to trust. Like, I immediately had advanced trust issues after what happened.
Yeah.
And that's
It's
been,
real.
it all started in my brain, of course. And like, it's been repaired with the friends that I needed them to prove that they were here for me. But like, yeah, just not having the opportunity romantically yet.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to happen? Hopefully they'll have patience with me and I'll have patience with myself when the time comes.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope that for you too. My second question was going to be, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but like, what makes your answer, at least today on this episode, it being increasingly so?
I think the last record, my answer was, I don't know, which was dangerously close to no.
Sure.
The first record was like, I'm starting to think so. I think it waxes and wanes for me.
Yeah.
I guess I'm in a decent place right now where the answer is yes, but barely, and we're building it up.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's happened recently that makes me feel secure enough to say yes, but I think I'm glad the answer is yes. It feels hopeless to have the answer be no. I don't know.
Yeah. Heard. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot in there. I don't know. I feel like you're still stewing on it a little bit.
I am, just because like this question is hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just so hard every time. And that's why it makes me nervous.
Sure.
But I loved your answer, like so very thoughtful.
I think I'm mostly just like, I have no idea. I'm like, interesting.
But I think that's a good answer because like I am not very attracted to certainty. Like people who are incredibly certain about things, and this especially shows up in like faith stuff. I just don't vibe with those people. Like if you say I don't know about anything, I'm like, hey, I feel that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just not certain about love in this moment in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear that. Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
It seems we have arrived.
Seems we've arrived. Wow.
Question number 10.
I'm kind of sad.
Are you really?
A little bit. I don't know. These have been really good questions.
Thank you. Here we go. Okay. What do you want to be remembered for?
Oh gosh. Gee whiz. What do I want to be remembered for?
I also don't have an answer, so.
Yeah, I'm curious. Does your answer for this one typically change?
Yeah, I try to change it if I can.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is as someone who loved well, which feels kind of weird to say after last question.
Sure.
But, or like cared for people. Yeah, loves people freely and well, and like sees everyone, or like as well as you can. Obviously, you can't like really, really see it, like, you know what I mean? Practically speaking, whatever. But as much as possible, like as someone who sees people who, like, again, cheesy answer, but true, like loved people because she knew Jesus loved her. And like, I guess all of that kind of tying into like loving Jesus or whatever. And also like, I don't know how exactly to word it, but potentially like living freely, like who lived like while in the midst of, I mean, at least at this point in my story, like, I don't know, who's to say at 50 years old, like how much anxiety will come up in conversations, you know what I mean? But like, regardless that like, at least at this point, like if I were to die tomorrow, that like lived freely in the midst of fears or whatever, once again, really only because of Jesus, but in like I'd want to be remembered as someone who people saw Jesus transform the life of in that area, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That was quite the question. I think those are my immediate answers.
Yeah,
I don't
okay.
know.
I did come up with something.
Okay.
I would like to be remembered as someone who gave other people their flowers when they were around to hear it. So like giving people recognition and praise for something that they had done when most people don't really do that. Like, especially like big artists or celebrities or whatever, like you have the whole thing after they're gone, and some people even like find their music and like really connect with it after they die. And like, I feel like, why don't we just do that when they're alive?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I try to do that, and I know sometimes maybe I overdo it because I'm not a words of affirmation person, or I don't like receiving that. But like I work around, and I live around so many people who do love that. So and it's kind of hard for me, but like I try my best to let them know like, hey, this thing was really cool. And like when I do say it, it's genuine and real. Like they know they're not just like, I'm not just gassing them up because. But yeah, I'd like to continue to do that and to be known like, oh yeah, Stephen will let you know when something's really good. People need to hear that.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that. That's a good answer. I like how you phrased it too with like, you want to be someone who was there with flowers. Like, yeah, that's a cool image and real. Yeah.
We did it.
We did it. Look at us.
Look at us.
Did you say there's one more clap involved?
There's one more clap involved. So we're going to take another quick break, come back, close this all out, plugs and all that good stuff. Don't you worry about us. Hello, welcome back. We're closing out the show with a high five. Maggie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
I knew you'd be a great guest because you're very thoughtful. You had wonderful answers. Thank you for sharing so much emotion with us.
I'm going to take pride in the fact that I was the first person to cry on your podcast. It feels like the only way to respond because other ways of responding are just sad. So I'm going to take it as a stamp of pride.
I'm surprised I haven't cried because like there was something in the first episode that was just so open and vulnerable and raw, and I can't believe I shared it. I'm thinking about it now, and it's making me tear up. But I didn't cry. I made it all the way through. It was great. But I'm sure I'll cry eventually. Yeah. In one of these. You just
now the precedent has been set.
You didn't get the pleasure of seeing me cry during one of these.
Yeah.
But I thought about it. Nice. Anyway, what do you got going on? Like, what can you point the people to? Calling on socials or?
Sure. Yeah. That feels so awkward. But yeah, sure. Follow me on Instagram. It's Maggie, and then this is my toxic trait. There's another 3 E's. And then Liz. So actually,
4 E's.
There's a total of 5 E's.
5 E's. Oh yeah. Okay.
So it's technically Maggie. Add another 4 E's. Liz. As of today, I don't think I'm going to change. I don't think I'm going to change it.
Okay. Yeah.
It was the first conversation that I had with Jonathan Cyphers was about the fact that my email is the same way.
Really?
Yeah. Before we had ever interacted in person, he like I joined his email list through like an Instagram thing, and so he DM'd me and he said, "I must ask, why so many E's?"
That's so good.
First interaction. Anyways,
I feel like in the email it's much more egregious because like you can totally mess up. Like,
yeah.
I feel like if you start with like 3 E's and you know there's more, it'll just populate and be like, yeah, this is probably who you're thinking of.
Right.
But in an email, you really got to get it.
You really got to get it.
Because like Maggie with 4 E's in the middle is going to be like, again?
Yeah. True. I wonder how she's doing. I should check it. I should see if it's real. I should just like email that address and see what happens.
Yes.
Anyways,
I'll put in the show notes. Don't worry about how many E's there are.
yeah. It's anyways, Maggie Liz. Also Maggie Youngs on like Spotify or Apple Music or anything. Do have some songs out, and there will be some more. Full Circle Music. I don't 100% know where Full Circle is going to be at by the time this podcast is released, but Full Circle is incredible in whatever form it's currently in, and so you should check it out. Seth is incredible. The resources we've had are incredible. There's a whole YouTube channel at the very least of videos and a podcast of all sorts of things speaking to areas of the music industry, like the podcast Steven talked about.
Yes.
And then all of the incredible artists at Proper Management.
Woo.
Check out too. There's all sorts of incredible ones over there. Casting Crowns, Kate Thompson, Leanna Crawford, David Leonard, Katie Nicole, Ben Fuller, KB. We Are Messengers. I think I got everybody.
Wow.
I think I got everybody.
you.
If I missed like one, I'm gonna feel really bad.
No, it's okay.
But
That was awesome.
check them out because they're doing incredible things.
Sick.
So
Okay.
yeah.
That's very impressive. If you asked me to name 3 of ours, I don't know if well, maybe 4. I work with 3.
I was like, you work with 3, Stephen.
You can follow this show at A Moment Pod, basically everywhere. And by that I mean Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. I think that's all I have. You can follow me at Steflo55, STEFLO55 on Instagram. I haven't plugged myself yet, so it feels right.
Yeah, you have to plug
I should have
yourself.
done that first and then the show, but whatever. Well, thank you for joining us for a moment.
Bye.